that Tsundere goddess falls in love with me. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 551 Perfect Plan. As soon as Lu Chuan walked out of the Gu family's gate, he saw Yuan Gangpun standing at the door pacing back and forth, his face full of worry. City Lord Yuan, why are you visiting the Gu family and not going to greet Lu Xianming? Upon hearing this, Yuan Gangpun hurriedly walked towards Lu Chuan. Mr. Lu, do you already know that Lu Xianming has arrived? Of course I know. The Gu family's intelligence capabilities in Xiaoyao City are still very strong. I got the news as soon as possible. Yuan Gangpun swallowed his saliva. I went to greet Lu Xianming. The first thing he did when he saw me was to ask me who killed Lu Ju. Seeing that he looked nervous and sweaty, Lu Chuan basically guessed the answer. You told everyone about my situation, didn't you? Yes, I told everyone. He lowered his head nervously. I really have no choice. If I don't tell you, I'll be dead. Lu Xianming is too strong. I certainly dare not disobey his orders. However, you are my savior, and I don't want to see you die. How about this? I will find a way to send you out of the city. Yuan Gangpun still didn't want to see Lu Chuan killed by Lu Xianming. After all, Lu Chuan has the inheritance of the Taoist Xiaoyao. If he is possessed by evil spirits again in the future, he will still have to trouble Lu Chuan to solve it. Since Lu Xianming knows about my situation, why didn't he come here the first time? It's like this. I was talking to him halfway, and Hua Qianwu interrupted and said she wanted to perform a dance for Lu Xianming. Now she has taken Lu Xianming to the square and is performing a dance. Lu Chuan's eyes lit up when he heard this. He didn't expect that Hua Qianwu was so reliable and had already started to do what he said. In this case, he must not miss this opportunity. Take me there. Yuan Gangpun was startled. Are you going to find Lu Xianming? You don't even have time to hide. How can you think of looking for him? He looked at Lu Chuan in confusion. This was clearly an act of seeking death. Lu Chuan said disdainfully, he should be the one to hide. Since he is here, I definitely can't let him go. Kill him to set an example. Let the Lu family know that Xiaoyao City is not something he can come to whenever he wants. Lu Chuan clenched his fists and spoke fiercely. Yuan Gangpun was frightened by Lu Chuan's aura, which was even more fierce than Lu Xianming's. This was too tough. Okay, then I'll take you there. If you can't beat him, don't blame me. Lu Chuan nodded at him. Then, Yuan Gangpun walked in front and began to lead the way for Lu Chuan. Yuan Gangpun walked in front tremblingly, muttering in his heart, what kind of strength is Lu Chuan? Why is he so brave? When a normal person sees the Lu family sending a general to hunt him down, the first reaction should be to run away. Gradually, they approached the square. Walking on the dim street, suddenly, a figure walked out from the side and walked towards Lu Chuan. Looking at his fancy clothes, it can be seen that he followed Hua Qianwu from Huacheng. After seeing Lu Chuan, he hurried over. You are Mr. Lu, right? Miss Hua has something to tell you. Tell me, what is it? It's like this. Miss Hua said that she has done it according to your request, and it's up to you next. Hearing this, Lu Chuan nodded slightly. Go back, I understand. He was a little surprised that Hua Qianwu was so efficient and had already done it. In this case, Lu Xianming must have a wound on his body now. If he uses the Nine Heavens mysterious fire to fight him, he will take the lead. In this way, he can firmly take down Lu Xianming. Yuan Gangpun, who was standing next to him, looked at Lu Chuan blankly. Did you communicate with Hua Qianwu in advance? What did she do for you? He asked in surprise. Don't ask too much. Next, you just need to see how Lu Xianming died. Yuan Gangpun's heartbeat accelerated. If the Lu family's generals died in his Xiaoyao city, who knows when the Lu family army will arrive here and flatten his Xiaoyao city? Although he was nervous, he still took Lu Chuan to the square. From a distance, Lu Chuan saw Hua Qianwu dancing on the stage. A pleasant accompaniment came over, and it seemed to be coming to an end. On the stage, Hua Qianwu bowed slightly to Lu Xianming and the audience, and ended the short dance. Then, the accompaniment disappeared, and Lu Xianming stood up and clapped his hands vigorously at Hua Qianwu. Not bad, you danced quite well, Lu Xianming said with a smile, looking at Hua Qianwu with a spring face. As long as the general likes it. Hua Qianwu smiled slightly and didn't say much. Lu Xianming took off his helmet and walked towards Hua Qianwu. You must be a little tired after dancing. How about having a couple of drinks? Hua Qianwu knew what his purpose was. She just wanted to delay as much as possible until Lu Chuan arrived. Don't worry, we can chat for a while. Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Xianming and asked, I'm actually quite curious. Aren't you a general of the Lu family army? Why did you come to this remote town? My purpose here is to avenge my family. A guy named Lu Chuan killed someone from the Lu family. He should pay the price of his life for this. Upon hearing this, Hua Qianwu hurriedly continued to ask, is this Lu Chuan your enemy? Lu Xianming laughed. He's not really an enemy. We are just cleaning up the house and sweeping up a piece of garbage, he said disdainfully. Hua Qianwu continued to ask, continuing to delay time. At this moment, Lu Chuan rushed forward. Yuan Gangpan followed closely behind, looking at Lu Chuan's back with a nervous look on his face. He actually went over there. He's so brave. He paced back and forth nervously, somewhat worried about Lu Chuan's life and safety. At this moment, Lu Chuan walked towards Lu Xianming, and at the same time, a ball of 9 heavens mysterious fire was brewing in the palm of his right hand. Hua Qianwu saw Lu Chuan's figure out of the corner of her eye. She was immediately relieved. Fortunately Lu Chuan came here as agreed. She thought she had done everything she should do, and next, it would depend on how Lu Chuan would kill this man. She was looking forward to it. What confidence did Lu Chuan have to dare to kill the Lu family's generals? It seems that someone is looking for you, so let's not talk for now. After saying that, Hua Qianwu turned around and was about to leave. Seeing this, Lu Xianming immediately became anxious. The duck in his mouth was about to fly away. How could he not be anxious? Hua Qianwu, didn't you say you would accompany me for a night? Why did you go back on your word? Hua Qianwu turned around and said with disgust, when did I say I would accompany you for a night? You should be content that I can dance for you. Hua Qianwu, you don't take me seriously enough. Besides, who is looking for me? Are you trying to ruin my good deeds? Lu Xianming turned around and saw Lu Chuan walking towards him. Chapter 552 Lu Xianming's Fury. The moment Lu Xianming saw Lu Chuan, a special feeling came over him. Lu Chuan's appearance and temperament were very familiar. However, when he saw that Lu Chuan seemed to have bad intentions, he immediately became alert. Who are you? Dare to ruin my good deeds? I will make you pay for it, he shouted angrily, still angry about Hua Qianwu. From the beginning to the end, Hua Qianwu hated this so-called general from the bottom of her heart. Even though he was a member of the Lu family and had strong strength, Hua Qianwu looked down on him at first sight. Lu Chuan walked towards Lu Xianming with a faint smile. You are Lu Xianming, right? Yes, it's me. What do you want to say? You came here to investigate the cause of Lu Ju's death. You already know that the person who killed Lu Ju is called Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan continued to walk forward, constantly closing the distance. What do you want to say? Do you know where Lu Chuan is? Take me there. Lu Chuan laughed. No need to take you there. He is standing in front of you. Suddenly, the atmosphere in the whole place became tense, and everyone looked at Lu Chuan with surprised expressions. Lu Xianming looked at Lu Chuan and asked, what did you say? I said, he is standing in front of you. I'm Lu Chuan. Hearing this, Lu Xianming's eyes widened, and he roared at Lu Chuan. You are Lu Chuan, the one who killed Lu Ju, the bastard born by the Lu family traitor in the secular world. I will kill you. Lu Xianming roared, picked up the battle axe next to him, swung the axe handle, and was about to smash it towards Lu Chuan. At this moment, his whole body was full of momentum, and a fierce murderosaurus suddenly attacked him, causing Lu Chuan to frown. Boom. Then, Lu Chuan raised his right hand and hit Lu Xianming with a palm. After the palm was slapped, a huge fireball was released from the palm and rushed towards Lu Xianming. When Lu Xianming saw the colorful flames in front of him, he immediately felt something was wrong and quickly stepped back a few steps, trying to avoid Lu Chuan's attack. Boom. However, his speed was not fast, and the heavy armor on his body slowed him down. Half of his body was still hit by the fireball, and the raging flames burned on his entire right arm. Suddenly, Lu Xianming felt a sharp pain, clenched his back teeth, and his face became ferocious. "Asshole, you are looking for death. I will kill you. I'm a strong man in the martial emperor realm, and you mortals are not worthy of fighting me." Lu Xianming had never felt so angry. He was defeated right at the beginning, and the pain made him unbearable, which further intensified his anger. At this time, a team of 20 people in the back hurriedly walked towards Lu Xianming. "General Lu, do we need to work together to subdue this bastard?" Lu Xianming roared. "I need your help to clean up a discarded waste of the Lu family. What do you think of me? Am I also a waste?" Hearing this, everyone retreated one after another, not daring to step forward to get involved. "Lu Chuan, you are Lu Chuan. You actually dared to kill Lu Ju. Are you worthy of killing Lu Ju? It is a pity and lament that Master Lu Ju died in your hands. Even if you exchange your life with his, your life is not worth 1/10 of Master Lu Ju's." His anger burned his reason, making him shout shamelessly. Lu Chuan stood there, with his hands behind his back, looking at Lu Xianming, and said calmly, "Can your right arm still move?" Lu Xianming raised his right arm, clenched his fist, and roared, "I will kill you with this right arm now. It's just a fireball. You don't think you can kill me like this?" On the stage, Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan with confusion. So far, she hasn't seen where Lu Chuan can win. Even from the momentum, Lu Chuan is not as arrogant as Lu Xianming. Although he looks calm and confident, it seems that he is sure to win, but no one can tell what the actual situation is. Seeing this, Yuan Gangquan also swallowed nervously. In his eyes, this Lu Xianming is like the image of the king of hell. If he stood in front of Lu Xianming, he would probably have been scared to kneel down. In this regard, he really admired Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan looked at Lu Xianming and continued, "Your right index finger seems to be disabled." Hearing this, Lu Xianming hurriedly looked down at his right hand, and was shocked to see that his right index finger was actually festering at an accelerated rate. After a while, his right index finger gradually festered, and fell off under the burning of the flames, revealing the white bones underneath. Seeing this, Lu Xianming's eyes widened immediately. He hadn't even started the fight, and his index finger was disabled. How could he accept this reality? Originally, when he came to Zioyao City, he expected that he would defeat the murderer in an instant, and take him back to the Lu family, to claim the reward without saying a word. He never thought that his mission would be hindered in any way. After all, what could a young man from the secular world use to compete with him, a general? But now, before the fight officially started, he had already lost a finger. This made him roar hysterically. He had been on the battlefield for a long time, and had faced countless powerful enemies without any physical defects. But now, just a face-to-face encounter, he lost a finger. "I won't let you go. I'm going to tear you into pieces. I won't do that if you capture me alive." He stared at Lu Chuan with his eyes wide open. "You're dead." He roared and rushed towards Lu Chuan. At this moment, he seemed to have lost his mind. The situation in front of him was too different from what he thought, and he couldn't accept it at all. He rushed towards Lu Chuan quickly, swung the battle axe in his hand, and was about to smash it down on Lu Chuan's head. If he was hit by this huge axe, he would probably die on the spot. Lu Chuan was flexible, and he just took a step back, and turned sideways to avoid Lu Xianming's fierce attack. "The flames are still burning. You are doomed." The flames on Lu Xianming's right arm were still jumping. Although the flames were not as big as before, the damage caused was still not to be underestimated. His right index finger first festered, followed by the palm and other fingers next to it. Unable to bear the severe pain in his right arm, Lu Xianming knelt on one knee, and the battle axe in his hand fell off, and slammed to the side. "Asshole, what did you do to me?" He looked at his right hand, then raised his head to look at Lu Chuan. Although he was furious, he also felt a sense of crisis. It seemed that the Lu Chuan in front of him was not as simple as he thought. "The whole city has been surrounded by me. You are dead today. What on earth is the flame on my body?" He shouted loudly, and the gorgeous flame on his body was not simple at first glance. He also realized that it was this ball of flame that caused him harm. Suddenly, he realized something and looked up at Huakayan Wu. "You bitch, you induced me to scratch my right index finger at the beginning, and now my right index finger is the first to start festering. You bitch, I'm afraid you have been having an affair with this bastard for a long time. I'm going to chop you up too." Chapter 553, Emperor Wu's Dominance. Lu Xianming turned his head to look at Huakayan Wu, and the rage in his eyes seemed to devour her. Huakayan Wu looked at Lu Xianming with a calm expression and said in a calm tone, "Lu Xianming, this is a conflict between the two of you, and it has nothing to do with me." Lu Xianming roared, "You cooperated with this guy to do something to me. Don't think I can't see it. The wound on my finger almost crippled my entire right arm. I won't forgive you," he shouted angrily. Huakayan Wu shook her head disapprovingly. "Whatever you say, my performance in Zioyao City is about to end, and I will go back to Huacheng tomorrow morning. I won't forgive you. You are a member of the Hua family. If you dare to do something to me, it means that your Hua family will offend our Lu family." When Lu Xianming said this, Huakayan Wu took a deep breath. This is what she was most worried about. If the family offended the Lu family, the end would be miserable. Although they are considered as local tyrants in Huacheng, they are probably not opponents if they really go head to head with the Lu family. Huakayan Wu sighed helplessly. "You should find a way to protect yourself first. You are almost dying, and you still have the mind to say harsh words here." Lu Xianming turned his head to look at Lu Chuan, and saw that Lu Chuan was walking towards him. Suddenly, he gritted his teeth, stood up, and pointed at Lu Chuan with one hand holding the axe. I will not let you go. You crippled one of my arms, then I will cripple your limbs and chop you down until only a head is left," he said arrogantly, and walked towards Lu Chuan quickly. Seeing this, Lu Chuan raised his hands directly, and released the sun god fire and the nine heavens mysterious fire from his palms at the same time. The two origins of the divine fire are Lu Chuan's strongest combat weapons. Lu Xianming rushed towards Lu Chuan. At this moment, he didn't care about the flames in Lu Chuan's hand at all. He just wanted to swing the battle axe in his hand and chop towards Lu Chuan. The fierceness on his body became stronger and stronger. Lu Xianming exuded a strong murderous aura and rushed towards Lu Chuan. This murderous aura permeated the surroundings, causing everyone present to tremble all over. Although the enemy in front of him was fierce, Lu Chuan was not afraid at all. Lu Xianming's strength was the second level of the martial emperor realm. This strength was placed in Zioyao City, and it was like an emperor. No one dared to provoke him. Even if the whole city gathered together to besiege him, he was afraid that he could fight for 3 days and 3 nights. However, Lu Chuan was an 8th level Yuanying, and it was not far from breaking through to the divine realm. What's more, Lu Chuan had 2 major origins of divine fire, plus the Zhuanhuang immortal body. In terms of strength, Lu Chuan was completely not inferior to Lu Xianming. Even if he didn't make a plan in advance, Lu Chuan could steadily beat his opponent. It's just that he might suffer a little and get injured. Now, with the help of Huakayan Wu, Lu Chuan easily crippled one of Lu Xianming's arms. Lu Chuan felt that it was not a difficult task for him to kill Lu Xianming without any injury. Lu Xianming rushed over recklessly, swung his battle axe, and chopped down at Lu Chuan. Then, Lu Chuan took several steps back to avoid Lu Xianming's attack. Compared with Lu Xianming, Lu Chuan was more agile and flexible. If nothing unexpected happened, it would be difficult for Lu Xianming to attack Lu Chuan. After several consecutive dodges, Lu Xianming missed all of them and did not touch Lu Chuan at all. Lu Xianming was angry, and he roared, "Asshole, I told you to keep hiding." He roared, and then he raised his right leg, gathered enough strength, and prepared to step towards the ground. At this moment, Lu Chuan saw an invisible force condensing on his right leg. He released his martial arts. Lu Chuan didn't know what skills this guy was going to use, so he could only choose to wait and see. In the distance, several of Lu Xianming's men were frightened and stepped back a few steps. "Hide to the side, the boss is about to release the martial emperor's domineering aura. Hurry up and find a place to hide, don't get affected." To be able to force the boss to this extent, this guy named Lu Chuan is really not an ordinary person. Oh my god, I didn't expect that the general suffered such a big loss in this marginal town, and he actually used this skill. However, after being forced to this extent, the general should also plan to end the battle. Seeing that he is about to release the skill, it can be basically determined. Is it finally over? That's great. These people are more familiar with General Lu Xianming and know how amazing the effect will be once this martial art is released. So, they all mourned for Lu Chuan. At this moment, Lu Xianming suddenly stepped on the ground, and immediately, this foot sank directly into the ground, and cracks spread around like spider webs. Boom. A monstrous murderosaur was suddenly released, sweeping around. Seeing this, Lu Chuan frowned. This martial skill did not seem to be a lethal martial skill, but it released a fierce momentum, giving people a mental blow. Lu Chuan immediately understood that this martial skill, like the immortal golden eye, could attack the soul and then attack the enemy's mental power. After being hit, the enemy will enter a weak state with reduced attention and energy, and the combat effectiveness will be much worse than before. When this momentum came, Lu Chuan felt his mind shaken, and he quickly used his internal force to resist the impact. However, Hua Qianwu on the stage obviously did not have Lu Chuan's resistance. She turned pale, fell to the side, and collapsed to the ground, with a look of pain on her face. That expression was as if she was scared silly, sitting on the ground, trembling slightly. Yuan Gangquan, who was not far away, was so scared that he knelt on his legs, looking up at Lu Xianming's body with a face full of panic, with only endless fear in his heart. This attack struck all around indiscriminately. If he was in the center of the battlefield and used this skill once, the effect would be quite terrible. As expected of a general of the Lu family army, his strength was indeed not weak. Lu Chuan stood in place, took a deep breath, and resisted Lu Xianming's soul attack. Seeing this, Lu Xianming suddenly widened his eyes and looked at Lu Chuan with surprise. You are actually okay. At this moment, Lu Xianming even thought he had seen it wrong. But after seeing the performance of Hua Qianwu and Yuan Gangquan, he knew that his martial arts skills were indeed effective. Could it be that his martial arts domineering aura had no effect on Lu Chuan in front of him? Suddenly, the corners of Lu Xianming's mouth twitched, and his face became extremely gloomy. In his heart, he felt that something was wrong. Lu Xianming, is this all you have? Lu Chuan stood in place, his expression calm and indifferent, as if nothing had happened. In the distance, Lu Xianming's men were all dumbfounded when they saw this. When Lu Xianming released this aura just now, they were all so frightened that their hearts were beating wildly and they were sweating all over. But the Lu Chuan in front of them was like nothing happened. Chapter 554 Killing Lu Xianming. Lu Xianming's martial arts released had almost no effect on Lu Chuan. Seeing Lu Chuan in front of him, who was almost like nothing happened, Lu Xianming was dumbfounded. He stood there, looking at Lu Chuan blankly. Impossible. How can you, a mortal in the secular world, have the same strength as me? He couldn't accept such a result. He had been practicing martial arts hard since he was a child. At the age of 15, he followed the Lu family army to go out to fight and participated in the battles that killed many top families. Along the way, it was extremely bumpy and thrilling. It was not easy to have a current strength. However, this Lu Chuan in front of him, at such a young age, had such a strong strength in the secular world. This made him feel extremely unbalanced. You are wrong. I don't have the same strength as you, but your strength is not as good as mine. Lu Chuan bluntly stated the facts. Lu Xianming suddenly found it difficult to accept this reality. He rushed towards Lu Chuan again and swung the axe at Lu Chuan continuously. His forehead was covered with beads of sweat. After swinging the axe a few times, he began to pant and gasp. Wearing a heavy armor and holding a huge long-handled axe in one hand, all of this was very exhausting for him. He launched a fierce attack on Lu Chuan, and soon, he gradually became exhausted, sweating all over, and panting tiredly. With just these, you still want to kill me? Isn't your Lu family a hegemonic family in Kunlun domain? It seems that you are just so-so. Lu Chuan said disdainfully, and he didn't take the guy in front of him seriously at all. At this time, Lu Xianming looked at the 20 people next to him and shouted loudly, "Why are you still standing there? Come on together, kill this guy, and I will reward you with 10,000 taels of gold." Hearing this, the 20 people who were originally watching on the sidelines all rushed over here. Go ahead, everyone, rush forward together and protect the general's retreat. Kill this bastard. We will go together. He will definitely not be able to escape. You beast, you actually crippled our boss's arm. We will never let you go. Kill. The 20-man team are all elite soldiers, and their comprehensive combat effectiveness is very strong and should not be underestimated. With Lu Xianming's order, they all rush towards Lu Chuan, waving their weapons. The combat effectiveness of this team of 20 people cannot be ignored. Lu Chuan is alone, and his 2 fists cannot beat 4 hands. If he confronts head-on, he will easily suffer. Then, Lu Chuan stretched out his palms, and 2 divine fires appeared in his palms, like 2 bright lights in the dark. Lu Chuan waved his palms and slapped the crowd. The sun god fire released a huge fireball, and attacked the crowd. Seeing the fireball was about to hit, everyone was frightened and retreated again and again, not daring to confront the fireball head-on. Seeing this, Lu Xianming also showed a look of horror. He could feel that this ball of fire seemed to be extremely powerful. Almost instantly, it engulfed 4 or 5 people. After the fireball disappeared, the 4 or 5 people were covered in flames. After struggling for a moment, they turned directly into a pile of ashes. Seeing this, the rest of the people were frightened and trembling all over. No one dared to rush forward and attack Lu Chuan. Lu Xianming, what cards do you have? Just use them. Hearing this, Lu Xianming said angrily, you are just a bastard of the Lu family. Sooner or later, the Lu family will kill you. Facing the huge family machine, you can only be ruthlessly crushed. You are really loyal. You are dying, but you still don't forget to brag about how powerful the family is. Lu Chuan walked towards Lu Xianming, and the flames on his palms were still bright, which made Lu Xianming panic. He seemed to feel that the 2 flames in Lu Chuan's palms were not ordinary. He now knew that, if he continued to fight, he would have no chance of winning. Lu Chuan, if you kill me, the Lu family army will not let you go. At that time, no matter where you are, whether in Kunlun territory or the secular world, there will be no place for you to stay, and you will definitely die. He brought up the Lu family army to threaten Lu Chuan, because this is the highest fighting force of the Lu family, and it is also the place where he was born. What he said is definitely true. If he kills him, Lu Chuan will definitely be wanted by the Lu family army all over the world. However, even if he is not killed, Lu Chuan's future will not be easy. The Lu family will not forgive him, and Lu Chuan knows this very well. Let's see if you have that thing on you first. As he said, Lu Chuan pulled out the bronze sword from his back. Seeing this, Lu Xianming looked at Lu Chuan in confusion. This bronze sword is really too simple. The lowest level soldier in the Lu family army would not fight with such a bronze sword. Are you insulting me? Let me die under scrap copper and rotten iron. Lu Xianming glared at Lu Chuan angrily. TSK, it doesn't work. It seems that you don't have that thing. It's strange. Is it only Lu Ju who has it? Lu Chuan thought that the Lu family had been infiltrated very seriously, and there were Lu family members possessed by evil spirits everywhere. However, Lu Xianming in front of him did not show such signs, so he must have thought wrongly. Of course I won't use this bronze sword to kill you. The key is that this sword can't do it. This bronze sword, if not used to kill evil spirits, has no ability to break armor when facing normal armor. Lu Chuan raised his hand and gathered the 9 heavens mysterious fire in his left hand, ready to kill Lu Xianming. Compared with the sun god fire, the 9 heavens mysterious fire will be more painful to kill the enemy. The sun god fire is too destructive. When burning the enemy, it will burn the enemy to death instantly. It is better to use the 9 heavens mysterious fire to slowly corrode the enemy's wound, just like slowly sprinkling salt on the wound, causing a painful and slow death. The next moment, Lu Chuan waved his left hand, and countless sparks were like a meteor shower, waving towards Lu Xianming. Lu Xianming quickly raised the giant axe in his hand to block it. However, the dense flames were still attached to his body. The flames instantly penetrated his skin and began to accelerate the destruction of his flesh and blood. Suddenly, a sharp pain came, causing Lu Xianming to lie on the ground and roll around in pain. He rolled back and forth frantically, unable to endure this bone-eroding pain. The family will definitely avenge me, and the Lu family army will never let you go. "Master Lu Fusheng, please avenge me and kill this bastard traitor named Lu Chuan." Lu Xianming looked up at the sky and prayed with his last strength. This scene was transmitted back to the Lu family mansion, shocking everyone in the Lu family. After Lu Xianming fell, Lu Chuan immediately launched an attack on the rest of Lu Xianming's men. Killing these scattered soldiers was easy. Soon, a pile of corpses were piled on Lu Xianming's body. Lu Xianming was completely killed, and the killer Lu Chuan was unscathed and uninjured, playing without any pressure throughout the whole process. Hua Kai and Wu was stunned by this scene. Chapter 555 Lu Fusheng's Rage. In the central area of Kunlun Domain, at the Lu family mansion. It was late at night, and Lu Fusheng was holding a meeting in the Lu family council hall. Many key members of the Lu family were present to listen to Lu Fusheng's opinions. Halfway through the meeting, someone broke in. "Master, Master, something bad has happened." Lu Fusheng's face darkened. What he hated most was that his meetings were interrupted halfway through. He asked angrily, "Do you know that it is my meeting time now? You dare to interrupt my meeting? Do you want to die?" The servant who came in to report the news knelt down hurriedly and said respectfully, "Master, this matter is extremely urgent. I must report to you in time." "Then what are you talking about? Hurry up and say it." Lu Fusheng slapped the armrest angrily and said angrily, "Master, it's about General Lu Xianming. Just now, the news of his death was reported." Suddenly, everyone in the audience was shocked, and they looked at each other, all with unbelievable faces. Lu Xianming is dead. Impossible. He just made great contributions to the family. How could he die? Who dares to touch our Lu family army? Don't want to live? Lu Xianming is brave and good at fighting. Although he is not ranked high among the generals of the Lu family army, he has worked diligently for the Lu family for so many years. He must have made contributions. How could he die? Wasn't he sent to Zhuoyao City? In that remote, unknown town, there are strong people who can kill him. Everyone found it unbelievable. Only Lu Fusheng touched his beard and his face became heavy. Lu Xianming is dead. Died in Zhuoyao City. I sent him there to investigate the cause of Lu Ju's death and kill the family traitor. But I never expected that he would fail. Could it be that the family traitor did it? Hearing this, everyone present found it unbelievable. Didn't that family traitor just enter Kunlun Domain from the secular world? He had been staying in the secular world before. How could he have such strength? This is too unrealistic. Maybe Lu Xianming encountered some other accident, or maybe he met his enemy on the way. It is also possible. Then, the servant kneeling on the ground stood up, took out a bronze mirror, and walked towards Lu Fusheng. "Master, please look. This is the last picture of Lu Xianming before his death." Lu Fusheng hurriedly looked over carefully, only to see Lu Xianming lying on the ground, with dozens of flames appearing all over his body. The flames burned through his body, causing him extreme pain. Lu Fusheng hurriedly looked at Lu Xianming's mouth shape carefully, and vaguely understood what he was going to say. He seemed to say Lu Chuan. Sure enough, it was that family traitor who killed him. Lu Fusheng's eyes turned cold, and his anger gradually swelled. This bastard first killed my son Lu Ju, and then killed General Lu Xianming. This bastard is now our #1 threat. I can't sleep or eat without getting rid of him. Lu Fusheng said angrily, with nowhere to vent his anger. "Master, since our target is only this one person, why don't we just let Lu Ming go? He is a professional killer. He doesn't need to fight head on. He can kill the target without anyone noticing. If he is sent, he should be able to complete the task smoothly. Things should be left to professionals." Hearing this, Lu Fusheng pondered for a moment and nodded slightly. "It seems good. We really don't need to fight this bastard. We have many external enemies now. We can't spare any manpower, and we can't send another Lu Xianming to lead the troops. In this case, then tell Lu Ming that this task is given to him. Remember to tell him that this assassination target is very important. No matter what method he uses, he must kill the target and can't find any excuses." "Yes, I will notify him right away." After saying that, the servant retreated. In the meeting hall, everyone lowered their heads slightly and fell into deep thought. They never dreamed that one day, Lu Kangsheng's son would come all the way from the secular world to settle accounts with them. Patriarch, this fellow named Lu Chuan is probably quite powerful. He can actually kill Lu Xianming. Lu Fusheng said disdainfully. I just saw the figure of a Huacheng man vaguely in the picture. This guy is related to the people of Huacheng. I'm afraid he can't deal with Lu Xianming alone. What? Someone in Huacheng actually dares to help this guy. Are they looking for death? Sometimes let's send the Lu family army to give them a warning and let them know who is the real overlord in the Kunlun domain. These guys actually dare to get so close to our enemies. Are they looking for death? It's really strange. What is the purpose of these people helping Lu Chuan? Lu Chuan came from the secular world and is very poor. There is nothing worth their risk, right? Lu Fusheng sneered. Don't worry about them for now. We will settle accounts with them sooner or later. As long as Lu Ming takes action, there is no one who cannot be assassinated. Believe him, he can complete the task. As for Lu Ming, everyone present was very familiar with him. He was one of the 4 killers of the Lu family and helped the Lu family assassinate many important figures of hostile forces. Now, isn't it easy to kill Lu Chuan? At the same time, in Xiaoyao City, the piled corpses in front of them announced that Lu Xianming and his men were all killed. The remaining stragglers guarding the city gates would probably not be able to do anything. Hua Qianwu stood up and walked to Lu Chuan. You actually killed him. It's so exciting. Hua Qianwu shouted excitedly, not only celebrating Lu Chuan's victory, but more fortunately, Lu Chuan did not lose. Otherwise, the branch of the sacred tree would probably fall into the hands of the Lu family. I really didn't expect that you are so young, but you have such strength and look so handsome. I really have this idea. Let you go to Huacheng with me and be my partner. She looked at Lu Chuan with a smile, took off the veil on her face, and revealed her true face. Her appearance can only be described as absolutely beautiful. Such a stunning beauty in Kunlun domain. I'm afraid that only the famous families have the opportunity to marry her. People like Lu Chuan, who are alone, normally don't have this opportunity. Lu Chuan, you said before that I will cooperate with you and you will go to Huacheng with me. She looked at Lu Chuan expectantly. Of course I won't go back on my word. You really helped me, so I will go to Huacheng with you. But when we get there, you can't interfere with what I want to do. Hua Qianwu nodded repeatedly. No problem, as long as you can follow me to Huacheng. Lu Chuan nodded slightly, then turned back to look at Yuan Gangquan and said, call your people to clean up here. There are too many corpses. It looks unlucky. Yuan Gangquan walked forward tremblingly. He didn't expect that Lu Xianming, who was so majestic just now, has now become a dried corpse. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 556, Aftermath. Yuan Gangquan looked at the corpse on the ground and was so frightened that he couldn't stop shaking all over. Lu Xianming in front of him died in a very tragic way. The hideous face, twisted limbs, and blood holes all over his body made people feel terrified. Yuan Gangquan swallowed his saliva and forced himself to calm down. Then, he looked up at Lu Chuan and said, don't worry, leave the aftermath to me. I will definitely complete it well. Lu Chuan nodded slightly and then prepared to return to the Gu family. There were still Lu Xianming's men guarding the several gates of Xiaoyao City and they had to be cleared out. City Lord Yuan, I heard that Lu Xianming sent his men to seal the city gate. Is that true? Upon hearing this, Yuan Gangquan nodded quickly and said, don't worry, leave this matter to me. I'll have my men trick them all to a place and then deal with them. Can you handle it? What if you can't beat him? Yuan Gangquan immediately added, although Lu Xianming is very strong and I'm not his opponent, I can still deal with these soldiers under his command. Upon hearing this, Lu Chuan waved at him and said, handle the matter well and you can continue to be your city lord steadily. Upon hearing this, Yuan Gangquan nodded quickly and began to deal with the corpse in front of him. Yuan Gangquan finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was able to get along with both sides, not put himself in any danger, and successfully maintained his position. If he had just turned to Xiang Ren's side, he would probably not be doing well now. Lu Chuan turned his head to look at Hua Qianwu and asked, when are you going back to Huacheng? Tomorrow. I don't want to stay here too long. Can you go with me tomorrow? Lu Chuan thought for a moment and said, forget it, you go back first. Hua Kai and Wu was immediately angry when she heard this. What do you mean? I helped you. You can't go back on your word. You said you would go back with me. She said very aggrievedly. Lu Chuan smiled slightly and said, you go back early tomorrow morning. I will go to Hua Cheng soon. Then I will find you. Hearing this, Hua Kai and Wu looked at Lu Chuan with suspicion. Really? Of course it's true. I promise you. I will definitely go to Hua Cheng. Then I will go to your Hua family to find you. Hua Kai and Wu nodded half doubtfully. Okay, I'll believe you this time. If you dare to play tricks on me, I will never let you go. See you in Hua Cheng. After saying that, Hua Kai and Wu turned and left. As she walked quickly, she bit her lip and couldn't help but marvel in her heart. She was amazed that the two flames controlled by Lu Chuan had such powerful energy that they could burn Lu Xianming to death so easily. No wonder the branches of the sacred tree appeared on his body. He was indeed an extraordinary person. Lu Chuan also turned around, left here, and returned to the Gu family. Everyone in the Gu family mansion stayed up all night, waiting for Lu Chuan's return. In the meeting hall, everyone in the Gu family was fidgeting. Some were praying silently, and some were so nervous that they couldn't breathe well. Gu Xiaorao sat in a chair, her face full of worry. She knew that Lu Chuan was very strong, but after all, the enemy he faced was a Lu family general, and the result was really hard to say. Gu Changai paced back and forth, and after thinking for a moment, he said, why don't we just go out and help Lu Chuan deal with that Lu Xianming? His proposal was opposed by the elders. How can this be possible? If we all attack together, won't the Lu family destroy our family as well? If it's just Lu Chuan, maybe they can capture Lu Chuan and the matter will be over? Gu Changai sighed helplessly when he heard this. He knew that he couldn't make a decision. This group of people would definitely not help Lu Chuan. Just when everyone was nervous and worried about this, Lu Chuan's figure slowly walked into the meeting hall outside the door. When everyone saw Lu Chuan coming back intact, they were immediately excited. Lu Chuan is back. How come you don't have any injuries? Didn't you fight with that Lu Xianming? What was the result? Didn't they fight in the end? Otherwise, let's just run away. Run away. The 4 city gates are all blocked. How can we escape? Can you fly? The quarrel in the meeting hall broke out again. Lu Chuan looked at Gu Changai and said, Lu Xianming is dead. After he finished speaking in a calm tone, there was a sudden silence, and everyone's eyes were fixed on Lu Chuan. Really? Lu Xianming is dead? Gu Changai looked at Lu Chuan with some surprise. Gu Xiaorao quickly stood up and walked towards Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan, are you serious? Lu Xianming is dead. She widened her bright eyes and looked at Lu Chuan expectantly. Xiaorao, don't you believe what I said? Gu Xiaorao nodded quickly. Of course I believe it, but it's hard to accept it for a while. If the enemy is dead, it will be much better. Gu Xiaorao breathed a sigh of relief. Lu Xianming was dead, and their Gu family survived again. Several elders stood up immediately, looking at Lu Chuan in disbelief, and asked, are you serious? Lu Xianming is a top warrior in the martial emperor realm. Ordinary people can't beat him at all. Where's the body? We want to see the body. Lu Chuan looked at the elders and said, Yuan Gangquan is already dealing with the body. If you don't believe it, you can go to Yuan Gangquan and ask him when you have time. He witnessed everything. Suddenly, the elders were speechless. The facts were in front of them. If they didn't believe it, they could just ask Yuan Gangquan and the answer would come out naturally. And such a big joke can't be made casually. Several elders looked at each other and stopped questioning anything for a while. Suddenly, everyone present was extremely shocked, and their eyes looking at Lu Chuan became unusual. When Lu Chuan first came to the Gu family mansion, everyone saw Lu Chuan, and their first impression was that he was a fair-skinned and handsome young man. From the beginning to the end, they would not compare Lu Chuan with a fierce warrior like Lu Xianming who had been on the battlefield for a long time. But now, this young man who looked like a gentleman actually killed Lu Xianming, which was really incredible. Gu Changai laughed heartily. Ha ha ha, well done. Once Lu Xianming dies, I don't think the Lu family can send out any extra people for a while. Our Gu family will be blessed after surviving a disaster. Gu Changai looked at Lu Chuan with uncontrollable love. At such a young age, he had such strong strength. If he grew up for a few more years, how strong he would be in the future, he didn't dare to think about it. Lu Chuan looked at Gu Xiaorao and said, tomorrow, I will go to Huacheng. Do you want to come with me? Chapter 557 Heading to Flower City. Lu Chuan's question made Gu Xiaorao think for a moment. She nodded slightly and said, no problem, I'll go to Huacheng with you. Lu Chuan smiled and nodded. Okay, it's late now, go and have a rest. After that, Lu Chuan looked at Gu Changai and said, everyone should have a rest first. You and Gangquan will handle everything tonight. I guarantee there will be no problem. After Lu Chuan finished speaking, he turned and walked out of the meeting hall. Gu Xiaosang hurried to Gu Xiaorao's side and asked curiously, sister, are you going to Huacheng tomorrow? I want to go with you too. Wouldn't it be better for you to stay here and continue practicing? It's dangerous to run outside. Sister, I haven't been to Huacheng yet. I want to go and see it. Gu Xiaosang pulled the corner of Gu Xiaorao's clothes, twisting and pouting, begging Gu Xiaorao to take her with her. I really can't do anything about you. Okay, you can go with me tomorrow. Gu Changai nodded happily after hearing this. That's right, let's go together. Let's see the world. Maybe we can get some opportunities to improve our strength. When we return to the Gu family in the future, we can help the family accelerate its development. After hearing this, several elders also agreed that the two young people of the Gu family should go out and walk around. They have been staying in Zhuoyao City and have not made any name for themselves. Soon, everyone dispersed and the entire Gu family mansion became quiet. The next morning, after Lu Chuan got up, he went to the kitchen to have a simple breakfast. Then, Lu Chuan came to Gu Xiaorao's room. Gu Xiaorao's room was very spacious and beautifully decorated. After entering, you could smell a faint fragrance. Gu Xiaorao had already gotten up and was sitting in front of the dressing table to simply dress up. After seeing Lu Chuan's figure in the mirror, she quickly turned around and looked over. Lu Chuan, you're here. When are we leaving? Lu Chuan came over and sat on the chair next to him. Let's go now. By the way, isn't that Huaqian Wu also in Zhuoyao City? Why don't we go with her? We can have one more companion on the road. Hearing this, Lu Chuan hurriedly asked, do you mind bringing another strange woman with you on the road, and she's so beautiful? Gu Xiaorao said naturally, of course I don't mind. Do you still want to avoid suspicion with her? I was afraid you would mind, so I rejected her in advance. She originally wanted to take me back to Huacheng together. Now, she should leave Zhuoyao City by herself. Hearing this, Gu Xiaorao curled her lips helplessly. That's a pity. In that case, let's take the family's carriage to Huacheng. After Gu Xiaorao dressed up, she took some daily necessities and prepared to set off. As soon as the two walked out of the door, they saw Gu Xiaosang standing at the door waiting. What are you doing here? Lu Chuan looked at her and asked. Of course I'm going with you guys. What do you think I'm doing here? Just stay here and be quiet. It's dangerous to run around everywhere. Lu Chuan advised. I don't want to. Why don't you take me with you? You two are not going on a honeymoon, and I'm not going to be a light bulb. Gu Xiaosang retorted angrily. Gu Xiaorao looked at Lu Chuan and said, just take her with you. She has been with me since she was a child. If she stays here alone, she won't adapt to it. Gu Xiaosang crossed her arms and said disapprovingly, I'm not a child anymore. What's there to be uncomfortable about? Hearing this, Gu Xiaorao immediately said, in that case, then you should stay here. Gu Xiaosang immediately panicked and threw herself into Gu Xiaorao's arms, shouting aggrievedly, I was just joking just now. You should take me with you. Gu Xiaorao smiled helplessly, looked at Lu Chuan, and said, let's go. So the three of them came to the gate of the Gu family mansion and got on the carriage here. Gu Changai stood at the door and watched the three people leave. He watched the shadow of the carriage disappear from his sight reluctantly before returning to the mansion. The large carriage drove on the main road and soon passed through the city gate and left Zhuoyao City. The carriage was pulled by 4 horses in total. The space inside the carriage was relatively spacious, and it was not a problem for 7 or 8 people to sit. The coachman drove the carriage towards Huacheng. It was expected to take a day to reach Huacheng. When they arrived at the place, it was almost late at night. Fortunately, they brought enough food to spend this boring day. Lu Chuan leaned against the window, looking at the scenery outside, waiting boredly. At the same time, in Huacheng, Hua Kai and Wu had already arrived at the gate in a flower carriage. The carriage stopped at the gate, and she got off the carriage. A row of people from the Hua family stood at the gate. They were all dressed very gorgeously, exuding the fragrance of flowers, and wearing flower decorations on their heads. These people were dressed up gorgeously, but at this moment they all looked at Hua Kai and Wu anxiously. Kai and Wu, you're back. What happened? A middle-aged man came up and asked nervously. Dad, everything has been done, and the target will arrive in Huacheng soon. Didn't he come with you? Is it just a verbal agreement? What if he doesn't come? Hua Kai and Wu said quickly. He will definitely come here. Don't worry about that. Okay, I'll trust you once. If he arrives in Huacheng, you must bring him to the house immediately. Hua Kai and Wu nodded slightly. Don't worry, everyone, you can go back. I'll wait at the city gate. When he arrives, I will take him back. Kai and Wu, I want to make sure you must not make a mistake. Is a branch of the sacred tree on his body? Hua Kai and Wu said seriously. I found the person according to the portrait provided by the Zhu family. If nothing unexpected happens, the branch is on that person, and when I was beside him, I also felt the fluctuation of spiritual energy on him. Okay, then we'll go back first and wait for your good news. By the way, Dad, if he doesn't want to come to our house, I'm afraid I can't take him there by force. Hearing this, Hua Tao, the head of the Hua family, was immediately embarrassed. Why not? We must bring him to our house and then find a way to get the branch. Hua Kai and Wu pursed her lips and said helplessly, when I was in Zhuoyao City, I saw with my own eyes that man killed the Lu family's general. Hearing this, the faces of all the Hua family members present turned ugly. Is it true? The Lu family's generals will appear in Zhuoyao City? Are you mistaken? Hua Tao asked in disbelief. What would the Lu family's generals do in the remote town of Zhuoyao City? This is very abnormal. Hua Kai and Wu said helplessly. The man holding the branch is from the Lu family, and he is the enemy of the Lu family, so it may be risky for us to contact him. Hua Tao was a little unbelievable. You said he is from the Lu family, or the enemy of the Lu family? How could this be? His name is Lu Chuan. His father was driven out by the Lu family, and the Lu family has been sending people to hunt them down. I don't know the specific situation. Chapter 558 Zhu family lady. Hua Tao paced back and forth somewhat at a loss. This news was not good news for him. This guy's really not simple. He is actually from the Lu family. He has grown up in the pursuit of the Lu family. Now he even has the strength to kill the Lu family's generals. Okay, let's think of a specific way after he arrives in Huacheng. No matter what, we must take this branch. Hua Kai and Wu said with some embarrassment. I'm afraid he may not hand it over. We'll think of a way when the time comes. I don't believe we can't get it done by using both soft and hard tactics. After saying that, Hua Tao turned around and left with everyone. Only Hua Kai and Wu was left standing at the city gate, waiting for Lu Chuan to arrive. It was not until late at night, around 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening. Lu Chuan gradually arrived at Huacheng. From a distance, the outer wall of Huacheng was covered with vines, turning the entire wall green. When approaching the gate, there were more and more carriages around, all queuing up to enter the city. Lu Chuan got off the carriage and looked forward at the queue. There were about a dozen carriages waiting for inspection. The speed of advancement was very slow, and it seemed that they would have to wait for a while. The carriage in front advanced for a distance, and just when Lu Chuan and his carriage were about to catch up, a carriage suddenly came from the side and cut in front. The driver got off and cursed at the carriage in front. Do you have any morals? You openly cut in line. Then, the curtain of the carriage in front was lifted, and a woman dressed in noble clothes shouted, "What are you shouting? What's wrong with me cutting in your line? If you don't agree, just hold it in." No, what right do you have to cut in a line so openly? Do you think you are right? The woman continued to curse back. I'm Zhu Erfeng. You can ask around in the city. Who dares to challenge me? You don't want to live, do you? Believe it or not, I will burn your carriage with fire. Hearing that the other party was so strong, The driver immediately shut up, unwilling to pay too much attention, for fear of getting into trouble. When you are in someone else's territory, it is better to restrain yourself. If you get into trouble, it will be bad. Gu Xiaorao got off the carriage, came to Lu Chuan and asked, "What's going on? Why did our coachman quarrel with them?" The carriage in front took advantage of the opportunity to cut in line, and just now it was even clamoring to burn our carriage. Hearing this, although Gu Xiaorao was angry, she still comforted him. "Forget it, let's not bother with them. After all, this is not Xiaoyao City. It's best for us to keep a low profile." Lu Chuan shook his head. "No, I must make them give up, or they will be spoiled." Lu Chuan walked towards the carriage in front. Gu Xiaorao opened her mouth and was about to persuade him a few more words, but seeing Lu Chuan's aggressive attitude, she didn't say anything more. Gu Xiaosang also got off the car and shouted excitedly, "I support Lu Chuan, and ask them to get out. This kind of queue jumping is too disgusting." At this time, Lu Chuan came to the carriage in front. "Everyone in the car, get out. What right do you have to cut in line?" The noble lady in the car got off the car. Although she was much shorter than Lu Chuan, her height only reached Lu Chuan's belly. She was not at all weak in momentum, and even pointed at Lu Chuan angrily, and wanted to curse. "What do you want to do? You want to make trouble for me, right? I'm Zhuo Feng. Why don't you ask around? Who in the whole Flower City dares to mess with me? You are from another place, right? You don't know how powerful I am, right?" She yelled and cursed, completely like a shrew. Seeing her behavior, Lu Chuan basically knew that this person was used to being arrogant in Flower City. Others might not dare to resist because of her status, which made this woman even more arrogant. Zhuo Feng. This guy couldn't be from the Zhu family. Is the Zhu family in Kunlun domain the same as the Zhu family in the secular world? There should be no escape. After all, the portrait that Hua Qian Wu got was most likely given by Zhu Lingan. "Your name is Zhuo Feng? I want to ask, is there someone named Zhu Lingan in your family?" Zhuo Feng looked at Lu Chuan with suspicion. "Why are you asking this? There is a distant relative named Zhu Lingan who just came back from another place. Do you know her?" "Of course I know her." Hearing this, Zhuo Feng became even more proud. "Since you know her, you should give up your position to me. Only when I'm happy can you be with Zhu Lingan. Otherwise, don't even think about chasing Zhu Lingan." Zhuo Feng said arrogantly. She thought at first that Lu Chuan came all the way to Huacheng to pursue Zhu Lingan. Otherwise, he would not have not known her, Zhuo Feng, but knew a little known Zhu Lingan. Hearing this, Lu Chuan hurriedly asked, "Do you think I want to pursue Zhu Lingan? Isn't it? Lingan is good looking. Although she is of ordinary origin, she is more than enough for you. Otherwise, why are you asking her?" Lu Chuan sneered. "She is my enemy, you know." Zhuo Feng heard this, and her eyes widened immediately. "What? Zhu Lingan made an enemy outside? That's right, so I don't care if you are Zhuo Feng or Zhu Sanfeng, get out of here." Lu Chuan scolded, not wanting to waste too much time on this guy. Zhuo Feng put her hands on her waist and shouted arrogantly, "I just won't let you. Since you are Zhu Lingan's enemy, I can't spoil you." Seeing this, Lu Chuan knew that this shrew would not give in. It doesn't look good to hit an old woman here directly. So, Lu Chuan chose to use the immortal golden pupil. His pupils turned dark gold and stared at Zhuo Feng. Swish! Exclamation mark. Instantly, an invisible spiritual attack attacked Zhuo Feng. Zhuo Feng, who was still arrogant, suddenly felt a splitting headache, weak all over, and cold sweat on her back. With a plop, she fainted on the ground, gasping for breath, and her face turned pale. "Ah, my head hurts so much. What did you do to me?" Soon, several servants got off the carriage and hurriedly helped Zhuo Feng up. "You bastard, you dare to plot against me. Why are you still standing there? Come on." Several men rushed towards Lu Chuan and raised their fists to beat him up. Lu Chuan was calm and kicked them out several times in a row, kicking them all out and falling heavily to the ground. Seeing this, Zhuo Feng immediately realized that she had kicked on the iron plate. She, who was arrogant just now, suddenly became weak. "Get out of here, or you will die," Lu Chuan shouted angrily. Zhuo Feng quickly got up from the ground and said to the driver, "Go, get out of here." She quickly climbed into the carriage and drove out of the driveway. She looked at Lu Chuan and shouted, "Wait for me, don't let me see you in Huacheng, otherwise you will be dead. My Zhu family will not forgive you." Zhu Feng fled in embarrassment, but in her heart, she had already remembered Lu Chuan thoroughly. Lu Chuan naturally would not be afraid of this old woman, even the entire Zhu family, he would not take it seriously. Chapter 559, Confusion of Right and Wrong. After driving away the people who cut in line, Lu Chuan returned to the carriage. Gu Xiaorao looked at Lu Chuan and asked, "Did you do it?" Of course, she is a bully who only bullies the weak and fears the strong, but she seems to have some influence in Huacheng. Be careful of the Zhu people, after you go in. Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang both nodded. The carriages continued to line up and move forward one by one. At the same time, Zhu Feng, who was driven away, stopped the carriage aside. She got off the carriage angrily and ran towards the city gate. She ran breathlessly and gritted her teeth and said, "Arsehole, you dare to attack me, I won't forgive you. Once you enter Huacheng, I will destroy you." She gritted her teeth and said with a hateful face, and soon ran to the gate. "If you enter alone, you don't need to queue up." She walked through the gate and walked directly into the city. Then, she walked quickly towards the Zhu family mansion. However, before she took 2 steps forward, she saw Huakai and Wu's car. Seeing this, she immediately showed joy on her face and walked towards the beautiful flower carriage with excitement. "Oh, is it Huakai and Wu?" She pulled aside the curtain and peeked inside curiously. Upon hearing this, Huakai and Wu got off the carriage and stood in front of Zhu Feng. "What's wrong, Aunt Zhu? Is there something you want to talk to me about?" "Of course I have something to talk to. I was just bullied outside the city gate." As she said this, she immediately pulled out a handkerchief from her bag and began to wipe her tears. "Aunt Zhu, don't cry. Who has the guts to bully you?" Huakai and Wu looked at Zhu Feng with great curiosity. In this flower city, it was rare to see someone who dared to bully a crazy woman like her. "Miss Hua, that guy was too arrogant. My carriage was queuing outside, and that bastard took advantage of the opportunity to run in front of me. I went up to argue with him, and he started to beat me without saying a word. Several of my guards were beaten up with wounds. Tell me, is there any law in this matter? You must make the decision for me." Huakai and Wu looked at her suspiciously. "Is it true?" "How can I lie to you? It's absolutely true. That bastard is still in the queue, and will be in soon. When the time comes, you must help me teach him a lesson. After all, you are a strong man in the realm of Martial King." She changed her grievance just now and patted Huakai and Wu's arm with a smile. Huakai and Wu nodded disapprovingly. "Let's wait until that person comes in. And why do you always offend people?" Zhu Feng smiled awkwardly and said, "Maybe others think I'm easy to bully. I'm really sorry to bother you. If you help me, I will definitely come to your house to give you a gift in person to thank you." Huakai and Wu waved her hand slightly and said, "Forget about the gift. I just happen to be waiting for someone here, so I'll help you." The Hua family and the Zhu family have a good relationship in Huacheng, so it's normal for Huakai and Wu to help the Zhu family when they are in trouble. Then, Zhu Feng looked at the gate with expectation. At the gate, carriages drove in one after another. Soon, the carriage that Lu Chuan and his companions were riding in drove in. The sharp-eyed Zhu Feng saw it at a glance and quickly pointed at the carriage, jumping and shouting, "It's this carriage, and the people in this carriage bullied me. Miss Hua, you must avenge me, and you can't let them go." She clenched her fists and gritted her teeth and said, "Teach them a lesson. Let them know whose territory this Huacheng is." Seeing this, Huakai and Wu did not rush forward. Instead, Zhu Feng rushed over anxiously and stood in front of the carriage. When the driver saw Zhu Feng blocking the road, he quickly pulled the reins and stopped the carriage. "Why are you here again? It's not over yet, is it?" the driver said helplessly. Zhu Feng put her hands on her waist and said proudly, "You are in my territory, don't think about getting out alive." Hearing this, the driver immediately became angry. "Are you done yet? We still have to hurry." At this time, Lu Chuan got off the carriage and walked towards the front of the carriage. Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang also hurriedly followed. Seeing Zhu Feng standing there and cursing like a shrew, the 3 of them frowned slightly. Lu Chuan stepped forward quickly and walked towards Zhuo Feng. When Zhuo Feng saw Lu Chuan's figure, she was frightened and retreated again and again. She was still frightened by the soul attack that Lu Chuan had just made on her. She looked at Lu Chuan and swallowed nervously. "What do you want?" I said. "Don't think about leaving today. In this flower city, few people dare to offend me. If you dare to provoke me, you probably don't want to live." She took a breath and shouted at the top of her voice. Lu Chuan immediately sneered and said, "When you ran away just now, you didn't look so arrogant now. What's the matter? Did you find help?" Zhuo Feng nodded heavily. "Yes, you just wait to die." "Really? Then call that person out and let me see." Then, Zhuo Feng raised her hand and pointed to the nearby. Lu Chuan turned his head and looked over, just in time to see Hua Qianwu's figure. Immediately, Lu Chuan slightly widened his eyes. "She is the thug you hired?" Zhuo Feng laughed triumphantly. "Why? Are you scared? You should know who she is. She is the daughter of the Hua family. If she makes a move, you will be dead." Lu Chuan laughed immediately. "Really? Then call her over." Zhuo Feng tiptoed in the direction of Hua Qianwu and waved. "Miss Hua, come here. This guy wants to bully me. You must stand up for me." Hua Qianwu walked towards Lu Chuan. Seeing this, Zhuo Feng immediately showed a smug smile, turned her head to look at Lu Chuan, and said with gritted teeth, "I'll see how arrogant you are later." Seeing this, Gu Xiaosang immediately became curious. These two people actually know each other. What a coincidence. Gu Xiaorao continued, "They are all from big families. It is normal to know each other, but I don't think their relationship is very good. It should just be a face." Hua Qianwu walked over, and she saw Lu Chuan's figure from a distance. She was a little surprised. She didn't expect that the person who offended Zhuo Feng was Lu Chuan. She didn't believe Zhuo Feng at the beginning. This old woman has always been careless and irritable. She has done a lot of things to fool people. It's good if 2 out of 3 words she says are true. Hua Qianwu came over and stood beside Lu Chuan, smiling and asked, "You came so late. It's already dark." Lu Chuan smiled and said, "We can't help it. Our carriage is not as good as yours, and we came out late, so we kept you waiting." Zhuo Feng's eyes widened when she saw the two of them chatting. She looked at Hua Qianwu and asked quickly, "Miss Hua, what's going on? How did you two get together? Do you two know each other?" She looked at Hua Qianwu and Lu Chuan with surprise on her face. Chapter 560 Hua Family Mansion. Hua Qianwu looked at Zhuo Feng and said coldly, "Lu Chuan is a distinguished guest invited by our Hua family. He is my friend. Do you have any problem?" Zhuo Feng's momentum suddenly weakened when she heard this. "Really? So that's how it is." The flood washed away the Dragon King temple. "We are all family. In this case, I won't pursue the matter of him bullying me." She smiled awkwardly and turned to leave. Seeing this, Lu Chuan hurriedly stopped her. "What did you just say? I bullied you? Say it again." Zhuo Feng paused, and her expression froze. Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan and asked, "What's going on?" Lu Chuan hurriedly explained, "It's not a big deal. I was queuing outside. This person rode a carriage and cut in front of me. I argued with her, but she was unreasonable, so I hit her." Hearing this, Hua Qianwu took a deep breath and said in a concentrated voice, "But just now, she didn't tell me that. She said you cut in her line." Hearing this, Gu Xiaosang was immediately angry, clenched his fists, and shouted, "This shrew is too good at reversing right and wrong. Who cut in your line? Do you still have any shame?" Hua Qianwu turned her head and looked at Zhuo Feng. At this moment, this luxuriously dressed lady was already trembling with fear. She looked at Hua Qianwu with timidity in her eyes. She never expected that Hua Qianwu actually knew this person and was a good friend. Otherwise, her borrowing a knife to kill people would be perfect. "Zhuo Feng, you dare to treat my friend like this? Are you going to heaven?" Hua Qianwu scolded with anger. Zhuo Feng stood there trembling, not daring to look directly at Hua Qianwu. I know I was wrong." Hua Qianwu crossed her arms and said coldly, "It's not enough to just know you were wrong. Kneel down and apologize to my friend." Hearing this, Zhuo Feng looked up suddenly and widened her eyes. "Me? Apologize to him?" she asked in disbelief. Hua Qianwu nodded slightly and said, "Yes, you apologize to him, right now." Otherwise, terminate our cooperation. Zhuo Feng immediately became timid when she heard this. Although she was very reluctant, she still knelt down in front of Lu Chuan. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I will never dare to do it again. She looked at Hua Qianwu with a frustrated look on her face and said pleadingly. Seeing this, Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan and asked, how? If it's not enough, how else do you plan to punish her? I don't want to waste too much time on this person. Since I've made her kneel down, let's stop here. Hua Qianwu turned her head to look at Zhuo Feng and said, go away. Don't let me see you being arrogant and making trouble everywhere in the future. Zhuo Feng stood up quickly and fled here in a hurry. Although she was very resentful in her heart, she didn't dare to show it at all. After she left, Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan. Thank you for coming to Hua Cheng. Next, come to our house to rest. Lu Chuan nodded slightly and then asked, now tell me, what exactly do you want to do with me? Hua Qianwu lowered her head slightly, hesitating whether to speak. Then, Lu Chuan took out the box in his arms. You came here for this, right? A wave of spiritual energy suddenly emerged, causing Hua Qianwu to look up suddenly. She looked at the box in Lu Chuan's hand and hurriedly said, yes, that's it. This box should contain the branches of the sacred tree, right? Hearing this, Lu Chuan nodded slightly and said, yes, it's in here, but I'll tell you in advance that no matter what method you use, don't even think about taking this thing from me. Hua Qianwu nodded helplessly. I know. Gu Xiaosang scratched his head curiously and asked, how did you know that Lu Chuan had this? Lu Chuan said, of course it's because of the Zhu family. Hua Qianwu nodded in agreement. Yes, Lu Chuan is right. It was the Zhu family who sent someone to pass this news to us and also handed over Lu Chuan's appearance to us. Because of this, our two families are now in a cooperative state. The Zhu family has benefited from our help and has become more and more powerful in this flower city, and that woman has also become inflated and arrogant because of this. Hearing this, Lu Chuan nodded slightly and said, it's like an Alvorish. No wonder you're pretending like that. Gu Xiaosang looked at Lu Chuan and asked, how did your portrait appear here? Gu Xiaorao also looked at Lu Chuan curiously. It was Zhu Lingyan from the secular world. She had fought with me and met me. She drew my appearance based on her memory and then came here. Lu Chuan clenched his fists. I will never forgive this Zhu Lingyan. Hua Qianwu smiled and said, if it weren't for her, we wouldn't have met, but it's not a bad thing. Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qianwu and asked, can I know now what you are going to do with this branch? Of course, you will understand when you come to our house. Soon, they arrived at the Hua family's mansion. In front of the Vermilion Gate, several members of the Hua family stood. Among them, the man standing in the middle, wearing a scarlet robe with red spider lilies, was the head of the Hua family, Hua Tao. Hua Tao saw Lu Chuan from a distance and hurriedly came up to him. Mr. Lu, we have long heard of your name. We have been waiting for you here for a long time. He walked forward, stretched out his hands, and held Lu Chuan's right hand, and said excitedly. Lu Chuan looked at him. He looked a little elegant and kind, and he didn't look like a bad guy. Thank you for troubling everyone. You are standing at the door waiting for us. Hua Tao said quickly. No, how could it be troublesome? Come on, come in first. Then, several people walked into the Hua family mansion together. Passing through the gate, there is a small front yard. There are various buildings in front and on the left and right sides, which are used for living, office, or cultivation. But in fact, the entire Hua family mansion covers a large area. In addition to these buildings, they also have a huge garden. The garden is a vast sea of flowers, and flowers of various colors compete for beauty in the sea of flowers. Looking over, the beautiful scenery makes people feel relaxed and happy. After Lu Chuan walked into the front yard, he looked at Hua Tao and asked, I heard from Hua Qianwu that you found me for the branch of the sacred tree. I want to know, what are you going to do with it? Hua Tao knew very well that they couldn't force it now. They could only cooperate with Lu Chuan to get the right to use a branch of the sacred tree, so his attitude became very humble. It's like this, please follow me. He led the way to the vast garden. Standing here, it's like being in a sea of flowers. Although it was late at night, many people from the Hua family could still be seen busy in the flower fields. These flowers all have their own uses. Some can heal injuries, some can improve strength, and some can strengthen the body. But the energy source of these flowers comes from the big tree in the middle. Chapter 561 Hua Family Spiritual Tree. Hua Tao raised his hand and pointed to a tree not far ahead that was about to wither and die. The tree looked like a banyan tree that had lived for thousands of years. However, it had few branches and leaves, and most of the leaves had turned yellow. The trunk was extremely dry, and the bark would fall off if it was scratched. No matter how much water was given, it could not stop the tree from decaying. This tree is the spiritual tree of our Hua family and the source of our wealth. It is the spiritual power emitted by this big tree that nourishes so many flowers and allows them to produce various wonderful uses. We sold some of these precious flowers and used some ourselves. Relying on this big tree, our Hua family soon became the first family in this city. It is no exaggeration to say that this big tree is our tree of life. If it is destroyed, then our Hua family will also suffer. Therefore, there are strict guards around the big tree, and no outsiders are allowed to enter. Outsiders can no longer threaten this big tree, but it is sick and is about to die. After Hua Tao finished speaking, he sighed deeply and said helplessly, "We have tried every possible way, but we can't improve the condition of this big tree. It seems that it can't recover. However, it is said that the branches of the ancient sacred tree can heal all plants in the world. Even dying plants can be revived instantly." After Hua Tao finished speaking, he looked at Lu Chuan eagerly and asked, "You should have this kind of branch on your body, right?" What Lu Chuan was holding was the branch of the world's origin tree, which was much stronger than the ancient tree. The spiritual tree in front of him was even inferior. If the branch on Lu Chuan's body was used to save the spiritual tree, it would definitely be more than enough. Lu Chuan nodded slightly. "Of course I have something similar on me, which should be able to save this spiritual tree." Hua Tao said excitedly, "That's great. Don't worry, just use it for a while. I will return it to you. As long as you save this spiritual tree of our Hua family, I promise to give you a big gift. How about it?" Hua Tao said excitedly. For him, this spiritual tree is the lifeblood of their family. At the beginning, their family developed from poverty to today because of this spiritual tree. He believed that once this tree died, their family would also accelerate its demise until it disappeared in the long river of history. Therefore, curing this tree is the most important goal of their family at present. Lu Chuan scanned the large circle of plants and asked curiously, "There are so many flowers, probably tens of thousands of them, right?" "That's right. Just selling these flowers can sell hundreds of thousands of taels of gold a year. The rest is kept for our own use, which can also accelerate the improvement of our clan's strength." Lu Chuan sighed. "Doesn't your entire family have to rely on this big tree for food?" "That's right. We can make a fortune because we control this big tree. Now if it dies, what should our family do in the future?" He immediately cried and complained, his face full of worry. Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan and said, "Now you understand how important this matter is, so I must bring you here." Hearing this, Lu Chuan nodded slightly and said, "In this case, let's try it first." Lu Chuan walked towards the spiritual tree, and behind him, everyone in the Hua family followed nervously. Soon, Lu Chuan came to the front of the dry tree. The trunk was very dry, and the bark was peeling. It would fall off if touched. It is indeed on the verge of death. If we don't find a solution in time, it will die soon. Behind Hua Tao, several elders all had sad faces. "That's right. It is estimated that in 1 or 2 months at most, this tree will die completely. At that time, the tens of thousands of flowers planted around it will also die. Little brother, we put all our hopes on you. We hope you can help us save the spiritual tree. You are our last hope. As long as you save our family, you will be our family's savior in the future. We will satisfy you with whatever you want. Hurry up and take out the branches to touch the spiritual tree. We can't wait." Everyone looked at Lu Chuan expectantly. Then, Lu Chuan took out the black box. He raised his hand and gently pinched the branch. A powerful spiritual power wanted to flow in, but was blocked by Lu Chuan. If such a turbulent spiritual power poured in all at once, Lu Chuan would probably not be able to withstand it, even if he had the Xuanhuang immortal body. He carefully took the branch of the sacred tree and stretched it towards the spirit tree. The moment the branch touched the spirit tree, everyone held their breath. They looked up at the spirit tree, all showing confused expressions. No reaction. What's going on? What the hell? Is this branch fake? Why is there no reaction? Logically, there should be a reaction immediately. No way. Is this branch fake? Huatao hurriedly stepped forward and stood beside Luchuan, his face becoming more and more anxious. What's going on? Why is there no reaction? Little brother, is there something wrong? Huatao asked curiously. Seeing this, Luchuan was also confused. Gu Xiaorao stepped forward and reminded, maybe they are incompatible. After all, the two are not of the same type. Huakai and Wu heard this and sighed immediately. If that's the case, then haven't I worked in vain? Suddenly, everyone present was dejected, sighed helplessly, and felt a little desperate for a while. Originally, they thought that they had finally waited for hope and could revive the family. But they didn't expect the result to be like this. This branch of the sacred tree had no effect at all. Huatao rubbed his forehead, paced back and forth, and felt very upset. It's useless. Why is it useless? Huatao felt very uncomfortable. Luchuan put away the branch, looked at Huakai and Wu next to him, and shrugged helplessly. Since it doesn't work, I'll leave first. Since you're here, stay for one night. It's also a trouble for you. Although Huakai and Wu felt helpless, she was not completely unacceptable. What's more, Luchuan also cooperated with her, so she naturally wouldn't treat him coldly. We can be regarded as a life and death friendship. We can be friends in the future. Huakai and Wu said with a smile, and didn't seem to feel much sad about it. On the contrary, Huatao was as impatient as an ant on a hot pot. He is the head of the family. Sitting in this position, he absolutely cannot watch the family fall. At this time, a hunched figure slowly walked over in the flower field. It would be strange if it would have any effect if you use a branch of the world origin divine tree to push upwards like this. Huatao looked over quickly and said in shock, Mom, what are you doing out here in the middle of the night? Chapter 562 Auction. The old woman was walking along the flower field, leaning on a cane, and someone was supporting her. She was walking slowly towards the few people. Seeing this, Huatao hurriedly went up to her. Mom, it's so late. Why don't you go inside and have a good rest? What are you doing out here? Don't worry about it. The branch that the young man is holding is a branch of the world's origin tree, the old woman said solemnly. Hearing this, Huatao seemed a little confused and asked hurriedly, what is the origin tree of the world? It is a sacred tree that only exists in myths and legends, and no one has ever seen it. And the branches or leaves of this sacred tree contain extremely terrifying spiritual energy. Saving the spiritual tree in our family is no problem at all. Huatao heard this, still frowning, and said, we can save it, but we don't know how to save it. We just touched the spiritual tree with the branch, and there was no reaction at all. After the old woman pondered for a moment, she said, if you directly touch the spiritual tree with the branch, it will definitely have no effect. Some special methods are required to connect. Huatao's eyes lit up when he heard this, and he hurriedly asked, Mom, do you still understand this? What should I do specifically? He asked anxiously, looking at the old woman eagerly. It's very simple. I have a set of bridging medicine here. Pick the medicine according to the instructions and crush it into medicine mud. Then, cut a branch of the spirit tree, apply the medicine mud, and then put the branch of the sacred tree on it, and you can start to absorb the spiritual energy. After saying that, the old woman took out a piece of paper from her pocket and handed it to Huatao. This is a secret recipe passed down from our ancestors. It is used to inject spiritual energy into the spirit tree, but there has been no chance to use it. Now it just happens to come in handy. There are two major secrets in the Hua family. One is to let people extract spiritual energy from plants that contain spiritual energy. The other secret is to inject spiritual energy into plants that lack spiritual energy. The former is their most commonly used secret, and the latter is the first time to use it. After Huatao took the prescription, he hurriedly walked towards Luchuan. Brother Luchuan, we have a way. As long as we find the materials on it, we can save this spirit tree. Huatao said excitedly. Luchuan took the prescription, took a look at it, and asked, do you have all the ingredients here? Our family has stocks of some common materials here, but there are also a few rare herbs that may have to be found outside the city. Huatao turned his head to look at the spiritual tree and said, this spiritual tree should be able to last about 2 months. We have plenty of time and we will be able to get all the materials together. Lu Chuan nodded slightly. No problem, I will do my best to help find the materials. Thank you so much for bringing this branch here. It really helped us a lot. Huatao said earnestly. He didn't dare to be careless about this spiritual tree. After all, it was related to the life and death of the entire family. After finishing speaking, Huatao looked at Huakai and Wu. Take them to stay in the mansion. After a day of traveling, they must be tired. Go to rest early. Huakai and Wu nodded slightly, then looked at Lu Chuan and said with a smile, let's go. I'll take you to clean up the room. Lu Chuan followed behind Huakai and Wu, took Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang through the flower field, and left this sea of flowers. Huakai and Wu vacated a guest room for Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang, letting the two sisters stay, and vacated a study room for Lu Chuan. The room was not big, and was filled with various books. Late at night, Lu Chuan went to bed after washing up. In this Hua family mansion, the fragrance of flowers can be smelled everywhere. Even in this study, Lu Chuan fell asleep with the faint fragrance of flowers. The next morning, after Lu Chuan got up, put on his clothes, and washed his face, he walked out of the study. In the yard, Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang had just gotten up, and were sitting at the stone table in the yard eating breakfast. Lu Chuan walked to the stone table, sat down and picked up the bowl and chopsticks. You all got up early, why didn't you eat with the Hua family? Lu Chuan asked. It's quiet here, there are only 3 of us, no one will disturb us. Gu Xiaorao said, picking up a piece of food with chopsticks, and putting it into her mouth. After a while, Huakai and Wu walked towards them. 3. Did you have a good breakfast? Huakai and Wu stood next to Lu Chuan and asked. Not bad. By the way, do you know how to collect those materials? Lu Chuan looked up at Huakai and Wu. Huakai and Wu smiled, and patted Lu Chuan's shoulder, saying, I'm going to an auction today. We got a message that there will be a rare flower in today's auction, which is exactly what we need. Then, Huakai and Wu glanced at the 3 people and asked, how about it, do you want to come together? Gu Xiaosang quickly raised her hand and said excitedly, I'm going to the auction, take me with you. She looked at Huakai and Wu expectantly, hoping that she could take her with her. Huakai and Wu touched her shoulder, smiled gently and said, no problem, let's go to the auction together. Gu Xiaorao looked at Lu Chuan and asked, do you have any money on you? This question stumped Lu Chuan. He had a lot of money in the secular world, but the money in the secular world could not be spent here. The common currency here is gold and silver. I'll give you some. It would be embarrassing if you don't have money when you need to buy something. She opened her purse and took out a few gold ingots from it. This is a total of more than 30 taels of gold, enough for your daily use. Gu Xiaorao said, and handed the gold ingots to Lu Chuan. After Lu Chuan put it in his pocket, he looked at Huakai and Wu and asked, where is the auction? Let's go. Huakai and Wu turned and walked towards the door. Come with me. The expenses of the auction will be borne by my Hua family. If you see something you want, you can just take a picture and I will pay for it. Hearing this, Gu Xiaosang laughed excitedly. Really? That's great. Miss Hua is such a good person. Gu Xiaorao next to him reminded, don't buy things just because someone pays for it, understand? Gu Xiaosang nodded obediently. Don't worry, sister, I won't. Then, the 4 of them left the Hua family mansion together and went to the auction house. The streets of Huacheng are decorated very beautifully, the streets are clean and tidy, and the paved stone brick roads are no worse than those in the secular world. The environment here is clean and beautiful, worthy of being a tourist city in Kunlun domain. Walking on the street, you can see the lanterns hanging on both sides, all of which are very delicate and beautiful. Walking all the way, Gu Xiaosang was dazzled. Soon, the 4 of them arrived at the gate of the auction house. Lu Chuan looked up and saw a huge sign. Zoo's auction house. This place belongs to the Zhu family? Lu Chuan asked in surprise. Huakai and Wu nodded slightly. That's right, all the auction houses in Huacheng belong to the Zhu family. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 563, Meeting Zulingan again. Lu Chuan didn't expect that the auction house in front of him would be run by the Zhu family. He was planning to cause trouble for the Zhu family, but he didn't expect to come to their auction. You should have no grudge against the Zhu family, right? Yesterday you had some conflicts with Zhu Feng from their family. Apart from that, there should be nothing else, right? Hua Kai and Wu asked curiously. Lu Chuan looked at her and asked, no grudge? How do you think my information was leaked to you? Hua Kai and Wu smiled awkwardly. Indeed, it seems that you have had contact with them before. This Zhu family makes me very uncomfortable. If they spread my information in Kunlun domain, I will not forgive their family. Lu Chuan now knows the importance of the branch of the sacred tree. If his information is spread, I'm afraid that dangers and troubles will follow in the future. This is what he doesn't want to see. He must attack the Lu family step by step and cannot be intercepted by other forces halfway. Seeing Lu Chuan so angry, Hua Kai and Wu felt a little worried. Although the Zhu family is not as strong as the Hua family, its overall strength is not weak. You only have 2 girls around you now. If you fight with them, I'm afraid you won't have the upper hand. Lu Chuan shrugged disapprovingly. Let's go in first. Then, the 4 of them walked into the auction house, which was luxuriously decorated with countless rows of rare mahogany chairs. Many people had already arrived in the audience, and they took their seats one after another, waiting for the auction to begin. You sit here first. I'll go backstage to ask if the flower is there. After saying that, Hua Kai and Wu walked towards the backstage. On the stage in front, the host of the auction had already come on stage to prepare for the upcoming auction. However, although everything was ready, the auction had not yet started. The audience seemed to be a little impatient, but they only complained in a low voice and didn't say much. Lu Chuan and Gu Xiaorao sat in the 5th row, which was relatively forward. Although it was not as good as the VIP seats in the first 3 rows, it was already very good. After sitting in the seat and waiting for a while before Hua Kai and Wu came out, a group of imposing people came. At the entrance, figures in blue robes walked in. As soon as a middle-aged man in the lead came in, he attracted the attention of the whole audience. Behind him, there were more than a dozen young people, all wearing blue robes, and it can be seen that they are from the same family. Lu Chuan looked back and felt a little curious. Who are these people? People here seem to value them very much. Gu Xiaosang also looked back and said, I don't know them. Sisters Xiaorao and I are both in Huacheng for the first time. Gu Xiaorao also shook her head. Don't worry about them, the auction will start soon. Lu Chuan continued, I'm afraid the auction has not started yet because they are waiting for them. Suddenly, Lu Chuan saw a familiar figure and face among those young people. Zulingan. She actually appeared here. Lu Chuan said very unexpectedly. The last time they met was in Kyoto in the secular world. Gu Xiaorao immediately realized something and asked quickly, doesn't that mean that these people are all from the Zhu family? Lu Chuan nodded slightly. Finally, I know who these people are. They are from the Zhu family and the owners of this auction house. No wonder the auction can't be held if they don't come here. The group of people walked down the steps one after another and took their seats. After arriving at the first row, among the crowd, Zulingan followed at the end of the team. When she was halfway there, she also saw Lu Chuan. She suddenly widened her eyes and looked at Lu Chuan in surprise. She didn't expect that Lu Chuan would appear here, and he was sitting in the 5th row. She immediately had 10,000 question marks in her mind. She quickly walked to the front and came to Zhu Shenghua, the head of the Zhu family. Uncle, there is a friend of mine here. I want to chat with him. Zhu Shenghua looked back at Zulingan, pondered for a moment, and asked curiously, do you have a friend here? Yes, he is from the secular world like me. Then go, don't delay too much time. He waved his hand impatiently, asking Zulingan to go away. It seemed that in his eyes, Zulingan was not important at all. Although she was beautiful and tall, in terms of strength, She was average in this flower city. Moreover, because she grew up in the last days of the secular world, her foundation was not well laid, and her future potential would not be too great, and her upper limit would not be too high. Therefore, in Zhu Shenghua's eyes, Zhu Lingyan's status was not as good as a servant who had been in the Zhu family for 7 or 8 years. Zhu Lingyan could feel Zhu Shenghua's attitude, but she would not say much. She knew that in the Kunlun domain, if you want to gain dignity, you must rely on your own strength. Without strength, there is naturally no dignity. She turned her head and looked at Lu Chuan. Gu Xiaorao quickly pulled Lu Chuan's arm and said, "She looked over here, and she also found you." Then, Zhu Lingyan walked over quickly, her expression still cold, as if she was indifferent to the world. "What a coincidence, I meet you here again." She looked at Lu Chuan and asked, "Zhu Lingyan, you leaked my information to the Hua family, don't think I don't know." Lu Chuan said with a little displeasure. Zhu Lingyan pursed her lips and said helplessly, "That was the decision of the Zhu family. I have no power to interfere. Facts have proved that the Zhu family has indeed become stronger because of this. Or tell me, what do you want to talk to me about?" Zhu Lingyan sat directly on the empty seat next to Lu Chuan. She whispered, "The Zhu family has been in contact with people from Cheyenne Wumen recently. They are investigating Yang Jiyui's death." Lu Chuan turned his head to look at her and asked, "Then what?" "I know you killed Yang Jiyui, but I didn't say it." Zhu Lingyan looked at Lu Chuan and said, "I don't have to keep this secret for you, but I really don't want to be your enemy. You want to show kindness to me, and then what is your purpose?" Lu Chuan asked directly. "The family wants to use me to marry a marginal clan. In their eyes, I'm just a tool, and have no right to refuse. Even if I want to return to the secular world now, it is impossible. I'm like a puppet, being controlled by them." Zhu Lingyan sighed, frowning, with sadness in her eyes. "The Zhu family has reached a cooperation with the Cheyenne Wu sect and wants to take the branch from you. You should be careful recently. This flower city will not be peaceful." Hearing this, Lu Chuan suddenly felt that Zhu Lingyan in front of him was even a little pitiful. Seeing her helpless look, she really didn't look like the high-spirited and young woman in the secular world. "You go back. If the Zhu family wants to attack me, then it is not impossible for me to destroy the Zhu family. Of course, I won't attack you. After all, you are one of the few people who grew up in the secular world like me. I can understand you." Chapter 564, The Battle of the Swords. Zhu Lingyan stood up and walked towards the front row VIP area. Lu Chuan looked at her back and was immediately touched. He couldn't help but sigh that human destiny is so unpredictable. She thought that, after coming to Kunlun domain, her martial arts path would be smoother and her strength would be improved. But she didn't expect that this family far away in Kunlun domain just wanted to use her beauty and figure to arrange a family marriage. She was completely a tool. "Lu Chuan, Zhu Lingyan is not your enemy anymore?" Gu Xiaosang looked at Lu Chuan curiously. Not originally, but the news she revealed is very important. "The power of Cheyenne Wu sect has arrived in Huacheng. They are joining forces with the Zhu family to deal with me," Lu Chuan said, and then sighed helplessly. "I didn't expect that there would be so many people who wanted to trouble me in Kunlun domain." At this time, Hua Qianwu came out from the backstage. After seeing Hua Qianwu, Zhu Shenghua and the Zhu family hurriedly stood up and greeted her respectfully. The Zhu family had relied on the Hua family, and Hua Qianwu, as the daughter of the head of the Hua family, made them dare not neglect her. Hua Qianwu ignored the group of people and walked towards Lu Chuan. "Lu Chuan, I finished asking. The key condensation grass I'm looking for is here, but I need to follow the auction process to get it." Lu Chuan nodded slightly. "Not bad. How many more plants do you need to find later?" "There are 3 more, and we have the rest of the materials at home." Lu Chuan leaned back in his chair and relaxed. "Then let's experience the Zhu family's auction now." The auction officially began, and the first auction item was pushed up. It was a long sword with exquisite workmanship, with a blue dragon pattern on the sword body and blue gems inlaid on it. Emerald dragon sword, starting price, 3,000 taels of gold. The first item was so expensive that everyone in the audience whispered to each other. Such a big show right at the beginning. It seems that there are a lot of good stuff today. This sword looks really good. I'm a little tempted. Such an exquisite sword is perfect for a lone swordsman like me. Then, everyone began to bid, and soon the price was raised to 5,000 taels of gold. At this time, Hua Qianwu raised the sign in his hand and shouted, "I bid 5,500 taels of gold." Hearing this, everyone looked over. When they saw that the person bidding was Hua Qianwu, they immediately became curious. Hua Qianwu is not a swordsman. Why is she interested in a sword? At this time, Zhu Chang, the eldest son of the Zhu family, looked over and asked loudly, "Miss Hua, you don't need this thing. Why are you taking pictures of it?" Hua Qianwu looked at the curious eyes around her and said, "Is there something wrong with the photos I took of my friend?" Zhu Chang continued to ask, "Miss Hua's friend is actually a swordsman?" Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan next to her and said, "This is my friend, and also a friend of our Hua family." After Hua Qianwu finished speaking, everyone present looked over. Soon, they saw the scabbard on Lu Chuan's back. This person was indeed a swordsman. Zhu Chang also looked at Lu Chuan, and the moment he saw it, he was stunned for a moment. Isn't this the person in the portrait brought back by Zhu Lingyan? The Hua family acted quickly enough, and they have already found and brought it here. Seeing that many people around were staring at him, Lu Chuan hurriedly explained, "Don't bother you, the sword I have is enough." Hua Qianwu hurriedly looked over, and after taking a closer look, he couldn't help shaking his head. "Your sword is too old, the workmanship is a bit rough, and the material is also very ordinary. You should change it for a new one." "Don't worry, I'll pay for it," Hua Qianwu said seriously. Gu Xiaorao couldn't help but smile and said, "Miss Hua, you care about him a lot, but if it's really not used, he won't change this sword." Suddenly, Hua Qianwu became curious. "This sword looks very old to me. It's almost unusable. It's better to change it." Lu Chuan continued, "If it's really not used, although the sword on the stage looks very sophisticated, in fact, it is far less precious than my sword. I won't change it." Lu Chuan's words made Hua Qianwu a little confused. Hearing this, Zhu Chang stood up directly. "What did you say? This sword in our auction house is not as good as the broken sword on you? Do you know the goods?" he shouted loudly, looking at Lu Chuan with disdain. "I'm afraid you haven't used any good goods, and you treat a broken sword as a treasure." He snorted disdainfully and sat back. Hua Qianwu was immediately furious when she heard this. "Zhu Chang, what right do you have to talk to my friend like that?" Zhu Chang got angry and retorted directly, "Is there something wrong with what I said? He was the one who belittled my treasure first. Can't I refute him? He just doesn't know the value of the sword. If he knew a little about the situation of the sword, he wouldn't dare to say such a thing. Are you worthy of using a sword?" He snorted disdainfully again, turned his head back, and was too lazy to look at him again. Hua Qianwu quickly looked at Lu Chuan and comforted him. "Don't be angry, the auction is over. I will deal with that kid." Lu Chuan didn't pay much attention to her, but stood up directly and pulled out the bronze sword from his back. Seeing this, Gu Xiaosang suddenly became excited. "Show off your skills to these mortals." Gu Xiaorao sighed helplessly. "The sword of Taoist Xiaoyao is extraordinary. It's a pity that no one knows its value." Lu Chuan pulled out the bronze sword, looked at Zhu Chang, and said, "I'm just telling the truth. This killing sword is not as good as the bronze sword in my hand." Zhu Chang stood up, looked back at Lu Chuan, and shouted, "Bronze sword? Do you know what a bronze sword is? What era is this? Who would use a bronze sword? You are a country bumpkin, and you dare to talk big here? You are really ashamed." The other juniors of the Zhu family also laughed triumphantly. "It's really funny. You have the nerve to take out this broken sword. You are so thick-skinned. Only a country bumpkin would treat this broken sword as a treasure. Why would Miss Hua stay with such a person? I don't understand. Maybe he just likes freaks." Lu Chuan sneered, "A bunch of blind people. If you don't agree, you and I can have a sword fight to see which sword is better." Hearing this, Zhu Chang slammed the table and shouted, "I'm waiting for you to say this. Come on, let's see who is afraid of who." Without saying a word, he rushed to the stage and picked up the killing sword, pointing the sword at Lu Chuan. "Come up to the stage and fight with me. I promise to cut off your broken sword within 3 rounds. Dare to slander our Zhu family's treasure, I will not forgive you today." he said arrogantly and proudly, looking up slightly and looking at Lu Chuan with contempt. Everyone in the Zhu family also put on an attitude of watching the show. Some of the Zhu family members even thought that Lu Chuan didn't even have the courage to go on stage to fight. Lu Chuan knew the true strength of the bronze sword in his hand. Although there was a layer of bronze steel on the outside, the sword body inside was absolutely extraordinary and could not be compared with any mortal sword. If they went on stage to compete, I was afraid that the opponent's killing sword would break in one round. Chapter 565 Showdown. Lu Chuan held the bronze sword and walked towards Zhu Chang. At this moment, Zhu Chang stood on the stage, picked up the killing sword, gently stroked the sword, and sighed in a low voice, "Such an exquisite sword. This beautiful pattern, hard cold steel, is really a rare sword. Such a sword, being insulted by a country bumpkin like you, is really heartbreaking. The things auctioned by my Zhu family are all real treasures. How can you insult them with a broken sword?" He swung the long sword and pointed it at Lu Chuan. "Come up now, let me teach you a lesson. Let you see what a real sword is. You have no eyes." After saying that, he snorted disdainfully, his eyes full of disdain. Seeing this, the rest of the Zhu family did not stop him. After all, Zhu Chang was protecting the interests of their Zhu family, and they would definitely not stop him. Lu Chuan walked towards Zhu Chang and walked onto the stage, instantly attracting the attention of the audience. Then, Lu Chuan raised his sword and said seriously, "Since you are so rude, I will teach you a lesson today." Haha, who is teaching whom? You got it wrong, right? He held the hilt of the sword tightly in his right hand and walked slowly towards Lu Chuan. "Now, I will make you pay the price and let you know that not everyone can slander our Zhu family's treasure. Take my sword." The next moment, he suddenly rushed forward, took 3 steps in a row, instantly closed the distance, raised his hand, and swung a sword at Lu Chuan. At this moment, the whole audience held their breath and looked at the two people in front of them seriously. Everyone in the Zhu family showed a gratified smile. Seeing Zhu Chang defending the Zhu family in this way, they were very pleased. Zhu Lingyan stared at Lu Chuan's figure. She had fought with Lu Chuan before and knew that Lu Chuan was very powerful. The bronze sword he held was probably not an ordinary thing. Hua Kai and Wu was a little worried about Lu Chuan and was even prepared to stop Zhu Chang at any time to prevent the conflict between the two from further deteriorating. At this moment, Lu Chuan raised his bronze sword to block. Clang! Exclamation mark. With a clear sound of metal clashing, the two swords collided with each other, creating dazzling sparks. Then, under the wide-eyed gaze of the crowd, the killing sword in Zhu Chang's hand actually broke. The sword body split into two and fell on the stage with a dull sound. The crisp sound echoed throughout the auction house, and the whole audience was silent for a moment, looking at Lu Chuan in shock. At this moment, Zhu Chang was even more stunned in place, looking at the broken sword in his hand, and he didn't come back to his senses for a long time. Everyone in the Zhu family in the VIP seats was also at a loss, and some didn't know what to do. Zhu Chang lowered his head and looked at the other half of the sword body under his feet, and was immediately frightened, and took 2 steps back. He looked up again, sizing up the bronze sword in Lu Chuan's hand, and quickly asked, "What on earth is this sword in your hand? Why can a worn-out bronze sword cut off my killing sword? This is impossible. You must have used some kind of sleight of hand." Lu Chuan sneered. "When the two swords clashed, the sword in your hand broke. The result is obvious. Your so-called sword is not as good as my sword. Even if it is a bronze sword, so what? Your sword is not even as good as a bronze sword. Isn't it even more rubbish?" As soon as these words came out, everyone in the audience began to talk about it. They even began to think that the Zhu family was selling fakes. Otherwise, why would such an exquisite sword be inferior to a broken sword? Seeing everyone talking about it, and even suspecting that their Zhu family was counterfeiting, it was definitely a major blow to their reputation. As the operator of the auction, the most feared thing is that their reputation will be damaged. Once it is damaged, how can they do business in Huacheng in the future? You bastard, you have to compensate for my sword. 5,000 taels of gold. You can't lose a single one. You have to compensate for what you broke. Also, our Zhu family never sells fakes. We sell real things. It's you, bastard, who used a trick to ruin my sword. I don't accept it. This kind of villain must be punished. At this time, Zhu Shenghua saw Zhu Chang so excited and shook his head with disappointment. Isn't his attitude adding fuel to the fire? Zhu Chang pointed at Lu Chuan and scolded, "Hey, do you hear me?" Lu Chuan stared at him coldly and said, "You are the one who is blind. You can't recognize that the bronze sword in my hand is a real sword. You made a wrong judgment, and you still have the nerve to blame me? You dare to speak so rudely? Then I will teach you a lesson." After speaking, Lu Chuan walked towards him. Seeing this, Zhu Chang was immediately furious. "What? You still want to attack me? Don't forget, this is our Zhu family's territory. You are looking for death, right?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Chuan rushed up, stretched out his right hand to pinch his neck, and easily lifted him up. Zhu Chang, who was pinched by the neck and lifted up, felt suffocated, and immediately rolled his eyes and kept coughing. Seeing this, everyone in the VIP seat of the Zhu family stood up, and pointed at Lu Chuan and scolded him. "What do you want to do? Dare to attack young Master Zhu? Even if you have 10 lives, it's not enough to die. Let go of me. You are looking for death. This is our Zhu family's territory. You can't do anything reckless. Don't you take our Zhu family seriously?" However, Lu Chuan did not stop, and still pinched Zhu Chang's neck tightly. The intense feeling of suffocation made Zhu Chang feel desperate, and the fear of death surrounded him like a tide. Zhu Shenghua immediately became anxious, and directly drew the sword at his waist, and was about to kill Lu Chuan. "Asshole, let my son go," he roared, flipped over the table, and rushed to the stage. At this moment, Hua Qian Wu quickly stood up and shouted, "Master of the Zhu family, please stop." Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua was stunned on the spot, turned around and saw Hua Qian Wu's figure, and suddenly widened her eyes. "Miss Hua, do you want to plead for this man? He is too arrogant, and even wants to kill my son on my territory. You shouldn't speak for him." Hua Qian Wu said expressionlessly. It was Zhu Chang who spoke rudely first, and he was the first to attack. Lu Chuan just fought back, and taught him a lesson. What's wrong with that? Is it because Zhu Chang is so arrogant, that Lu Chuan is not allowed to teach him a lesson? Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua was immediately deflated, and sat back in his original position helplessly, looking at Zhu Chang nervously, fearing that Zhu Chang would be hurt. Lu Chuan suddenly kicked Zhu Chang in the abdomen, kicking him out directly, and hitting him heavily on the ground. As soon as Zhu Chang landed, blood gushed out of his mouth, and he was dying. This scene frightened everyone in the audience, fearing that Zhu Chang would die suddenly. Chapter 566. Key condensation grass. Lu Chuan's kick was so fierce that he almost kicked Zhu Chang to death. After Zhu Chang lay on the ground, blood kept gushing out of his mouth, and his entire chest was stained with blood. You dare to be so cruel to my son. I will never forgive you." Zhu Shenghua pointed at Lu Chuan and shouted angrily. Hua Qian Wu looked at Zhu Shenghua and suddenly felt a little strange. This guy was so disrespectful to her. She had warned him once, but he still dared to speak rudely to Lu Chuan. Could it be that he had the confidence to not be afraid of the Hua family as a backer? It was because of the Hua family that their Zhu family gradually became stronger and almost became the second in command of Hua Cheng. They have always been obedient to the Hua family and dared not disobey them at all. There was something wrong with Zhu Shenghua today. At this time, Lu Chuan looked at Zhu Shenghua and said disdainfully, "Why don't you avenge your son now, and see if you can do it?" Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua felt a little weak. To attack Lu Chuan now would be to provoke the Hua family, and he didn't want to start a war with the Hua family in advance. He took a deep breath, and his shaking hands gradually stabilized. Then, he slowly sat back in his original position, looking at Lu Chuan with resentment in his eyes. "Go, quickly call someone to save my son, not a second late. If he is not rescued in time, I will not forgive you." Zhu Shenghua scolded, and the two Zhu family members next to him hurriedly stood up and walked towards Zhu Chang. The originally lively auction now became silent, and the atmosphere in the whole venue was cold as ice. People in the audience only dared to talk in a low voice and did not dare to speak loudly. However, they were all surprised by Lu Chuan. Unexpectedly, this young man from outside the province was so fierce and was not afraid of the power of the Zhu family at all. After scanning the whole audience, Lu Chuan said lightly, "Everyone continue to participate in the auction. My dispute with the Zhu family is over." After that, he continued to walk towards the audience and no longer entangled with the Zhu family. The most important thing for Huakayan Wu to do when he came to the Zhu family auction today was to help her get the key condensation grass and gather one of the materials. Therefore, he did not want to make the matter worse. Although, he was not afraid of the Zhu family. After he returned to his seat, Gu Xiaosang said excitedly, "You are too cruel. That kick almost kicked that man to death. I didn't expect that the sword of Taoist Xiaoyao is quite powerful." Huakayan Wu looked over and asked curiously, "Taoist Xiaoyao? Did Taoist Xiaoyao give this sword? By the way, who is Taoist Xiaoyao?" Huakayan Wu, who was far away in Huacheng, had never been to Xiaoyao city, let alone who Taoist Xiaoyao was. Lu Chuan said disapprovingly, "Taoist Xiaoyao is half of my mentor. He gave me the sword and the sword manual, which is regarded as passing on the inheritance to me. Although I'm not his formal apprentice, I'm still very grateful that he is willing to help me. This bronze sword is definitely of good quality. The outer layer of bronze seal cannot be opened. It does not mean that the inside of the sword is still made of bronze." Lu Chuan naturally didn't know how to unleash the true power of this sword. Even if Taoist Xiaoyao used this sword for his whole life, he couldn't break the secret of this sword. Huakayan Wu was curious when she heard this. This Taoist Xiaoyao sounds very powerful. This sword is really extraordinary. The killing sword is so fragile in front of it. It seems that this sword is really extraordinary. She looked at the sword on Lu Chuan's back and was very curious. "By the way, does your sword have any other effects besides being hard enough?" Lu Chuan smiled faintly and said, "Its main function is to kill evil spirits. Since I came to Huacheng, I haven't seen any evil spirits appear yet." Huakayan Wu widened her curious eyes again. "Evil spirit? What is that?" "It is an evil thing that parasitizes in the human body, constantly destroying the host's body until death, and then completes the replacement." When Huakayan Wu heard this description, she was immediately scared. This sounded too dangerous. If it was possessed by an evil spirit, wouldn't it be unknown how it died? In this way, this sword is really extraordinary. Although there was an unpleasant episode at the auction continued. After all, this is an opportunity for the Zhu family to make money, so they naturally won't end it hastily. Several treasures were sent up one after another, but Huakayan Wu and Lu Chuan didn't want anything. Only Gu Xiaosang saw a beautiful necklace and couldn't help but take a picture of it. The rest of them didn't take any pictures. Huakayan Wu's purpose was very clear. She came here today just to get the key condensation grass. A dozen auction items were pushed up one after another, and finally, it was the turn of the key condensation grass. A beautiful woman in a Chiangsam came over pushing a cart. On the cart was a potted plant with a light blue grass planted in it. It looked a bit like a hanging basket, but the color was more special. There were waves of air flowing around the key condensation grass, which was a manifestation of it absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Then, the host began to introduce it. "This is key condensing grass. It can absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and store it in it. After purchasing it, you can place it at home. After it has absorbed all the spiritual energy, you can absorb it back from it. Of course, you can also directly make it into pills to quickly improve your strength. No matter how you use it, this is a good treasure. Next, let's start the auction. The starting price, 2,000 taels of gold." Upon hearing this, Gu Xiaorao couldn't help but sigh. This grass is really unusual. The starting price is 2,000 taels of gold. It's really not an ordinary thing. I must get it. Huakayan Wu said in a firm tone. This spiritual grass is very rare. If you miss it now, it will be difficult to find it again. At this time, Lu Chuan asked curiously, "You have such a good relationship with the Zhu family, so can't you just ask them directly?" Huakayan Wu sighed. "When she heard this, I told them when I went backstage, but they replied that I should auction as usual, because the list of auction items has been announced. If one is suddenly taken away, other guests will be uncomfortable. Lu Chuan frowned slightly. This reason is far-fetched. If other people know that it was your Hua family who took it, would they dare to object? Hua Kaian Wu shrugged helplessly. There is no way. Since they said so, I can't just bite the bullet and continue to ask for it, right? Forget it. Let's bid according to the rules. Maybe they want to make more money. Then, Hua Kaian Wu raised the sign and said, I'll offer 3,000 taels of gold. However, as soon as Hua Kaian Wu finished speaking, a man in white in the corner quickly raised the sign and shouted loudly, I'll offer 5,000 taels of gold. The price was raised to 5,000 taels of gold in an instant, and everyone in the audience was a little surprised. Chapter 567 Bidding. Although key condensation grass is very rare, it is completely abnormal for the price to rise so quickly. Now it has risen to 5,000 taels of gold, and others immediately lost the desire to bid. In an instant, Hua Kaian Wu was basically the only one who continued to bid. I offer 6,000 taels of gold. Then, the man in white sitting in the corner raised the sign again. I offer 10,000 taels of gold. After saying that, he turned his head and looked in the direction of Hua Kaian Wu with a disdainful smile. The hostile eyes made Hua Kaian Wu feel unhappy. This guy seemed to be deliberately confronting her. But, she didn't know him at all. Hua Kaian Wu muttered in her heart, and the people present had already been scared by the price and started talking about it. Oh my god, did I hear it right? It has skyrocketed to 10,000 taels of gold. Is this spiritual herb made of gold? Haha, this spiritual herb is more precious than gold. 10,000 taels of gold. Do you know how much it is? That's terrible. Is there any secret about this spiritual herb? Why would you bleed so much for it? This is the real rich man. We are not even as good as them. Hua Kaian Wu looked at the man in white and felt angry. This guy is obviously here to cause trouble. However, even if it is 10,000 taels of gold, she must continue to bid. After all, this is a matter of whether the family spiritual tree can be resurrected. In this matter, she has nothing to worry about, so she can only continue to bid. I bid 11,000 taels of gold. Hua Kaian Wu continued to raise the sign. Seeing this, everyone seemed to realize that Hua Kaian Wu was determined to take this spiritual herb. It seems that these two people are at odds. At this time, the man in white raised his sign again. 15,000 taels of gold. He looked back at Hua Kaian Wu again, his mouth corners raised, revealing a smug smile. At this time, Hua Kaian Wu clenched her fists and secretly clenched her back teeth. This guy was too arrogant, and it was obvious that he was targeting her. Seeing this, Lu Chuan also realized that something was wrong. What's wrong with this person? Can he bid so high a price? I don't know. I guess he is targeting me on purpose. Gu Xiaorao frowned slightly. Is he an enemy of your family? No, I don't know him at all. That's strange. Who could it be? It can't be that he needs this too, right? But even if he needs it, he shouldn't offer such a high price. Hua Kaian Wu sighed helplessly. She knew she couldn't give up. After all, this was related to the safety of the family. The future of the family depended on this material. So, she couldn't retreat and could only continue to bid. I'll bid 16,000 taels. The bidding between the two had become a hot topic for everyone in the venue. The momentum of the bidding was so fierce that they were all dumbfounded. 16,000 taels. This is too scary. This price is almost as much as my net worth. Oh my goodness, this spiritual herb is going to be the most expensive item auctioned today. It's really outrageous. Why are these two people fighting so hard? They're losing a lot. Key condensation grass is not a treasure that is rare in 100 years, right? Hua Kaian Wu knew in her heart that there must be key condensation grass in other places besides here. But if she really wanted to look for it, she might not be able to find it in 2 months. She couldn't waste time. Although the family spiritual tree seemed to have 2 months of survival time, no one could predict what would happen in the future. She had to seize this opportunity in front of her. Just after Hua Kaian Wu raised the sign, the man in white raised the sign again. He said lightly, 20,000 taels of gold. I think this lady should not follow. After saying that, he turned back and looked at Hua Kaian Wu as if he was formally declaring war on her. Hua Kaian Wu gritted her teeth, feeling extremely unhappy, and wished she could go up and kill this bastard. 20,000 taels of gold. This is really a bit daunting. Hua Qianwu even wanted to give up a little bit. If she took the photo, she would lose a lot of money. However, for the survival of the family spirit tree, she didn't want to give up like this. After a struggle in her heart, she held the sign again, wanting to add another 1,000 taels of gold. At this time, the competition between the two people had made everyone in the audience excited. They began to wonder what the price of this spiritual herb would be in the end. Just as Hua Qianwu was about to raise the sign again, Lu Chuan held her hand and said, "Don't raise it. No matter how high you raise it, he will be higher than you. They don't intend to give it to you at all." Hearing this, Hua Qianwu immediately fell into deep thought. The meaning of Lu Chuan's words was very clear. They are not willing to give you the things. This they refers to the Zhu family. You mean, the Zhu family doesn't want to give me the things? That's right. Otherwise, which fool would spend more than 20,000 taels of gold to buy this spiritual herb? Hua Qianwu took a deep breath and looked up at the Zhu family members in the VIP seats. They were all very calm, as if they were used to this bidding, as if they had been prepared. Seeing this, Hua Qianwu immediately knew what was going on. Maybe you are right. These people from the Zhu family just don't plan to sell the things to me. So, the man in white is also arranged by the Zhu family. Lu Chuan shook his head slightly. I don't think so. This person may not be arranged by the Zhu family. His overall temperament and appearance are incompatible with the Zhu family. Hua Qianwu suddenly became curious. If he is not from the Zhu family, why would he have the courage to help them to offend me? Maybe he is from the Qianwu sect, so he is not afraid of offending you. At this time, Lu Chuan thought of what Zhu Lingyan had just said. The Zhu family has already cooperated with the people of Qianwu sect to take back the branch in Lu Chuan's hand. The possibility of cooperation between these two families is very high. Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qianwu and asked, "Does the Zhu family know about the situation of your family's spiritual tree?" The Zhu family knows. Hua Qianwu's face became heavy. At this moment, she seemed to realize something and hurriedly looked at Lu Chuan and asked, "Do you mean to say that the Zhu family has found a new backer and wants to take this opportunity to trip up our Hua family, so they are blocking me and not letting me get the materials?" Lu Chuan nodded slightly. "Yes, it is very possible. Then what should we do? If we can't get this spiritual herb, won't it waste more time to look for it somewhere else?" Lu Chuan smiled faintly and said, "Don't worry, leave this matter to me. Since Qianwu sect is coming for me, I naturally can't let them go. I will find a chance to find this man in white and take the spiritual herb from him. If he doesn't give it to me, then wait for death." Chapter 568, Discussion. After Hua Qianwu stopped bidding, the man in white was the only one holding up the sign. Naturally, the key condensation grass fell into his hands. Let's congratulate this gentleman for successfully bidding for the key condensation grass. There was continuous applause from the audience. The man in white looked back at Hua Qianwu with a smug smile. It was as if he was deliberately going against her. Seeing this, Hua Qianwu clenched her fists, wishing she could swing her sword and kill the man right now. This was a matter of life and death for the family, and she dared not be careless. Now that someone had cut off a way to collect materials, it would undoubtedly cut off the chance for their family to survive. She would never forgive this bastard. The auction was gradually coming to an end. Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan and asked, "How do you plan to get the key condensation grass back? Otherwise, we can just find this guy and force him with force after the auction." Lu Chuan shook his head slightly. "It's not a good idea to use force rashly. Let's find an opportunity first." "What kind of opportunity should we find?" Lu Chuan touched his chin, thought for a moment, and said, "I'll go and contact him after the auction is over." Hua Qianwu still felt a little uneasy. If this guy took the key condensation grass away from Hua Cheng, they would have to waste a lot of time to find it again. At least it would be difficult to find a second one in Hua Cheng. Soon, the auction ended, and the crowd got up one after another and walked towards the gate. After the auction, some people were happy and some were sad. Some people bought the good things they liked, while others could only watch the things they wanted being taken away by others. Hua Qianwu belonged to the latter. When she stood up, she glanced at the man in white and her eyebrows couldn't help but frown slightly. After walking out of the auction house, Lu Chuan stood at the door of the auction house, waiting for the people inside to come out one after another. Guzayadora and Guzayada Sang both stood behind Lu Chuan, waiting quietly. People came out one after another, and finally, the man in white came out. He walked leisurely, and seemed to be in a good mood. Hand over the things. Hua Qianwu walked up, and stopped him directly. She couldn't wait any longer, and wanted to take the things back directly. The man in white looked at Hua Qianwu, and saw that she was so anxious, and immediately smiled happily. Are you talking about the key condensation grass? Even if I don't give it to you, what can you do to me? This is what I spent money to buy. You gave up on your own. How can you blame me? He shrugged disapprovingly, and prepared to continue walking forward. Hua Qianwu clenched her fists, and gritted her teeth and said, if you don't take out the things today, I won't let you go. At this moment, she was indeed a little anxious. After all, the future of the family was in her hands, and she was definitely unwilling to give up easily. The man spread his hands, and said with a smile, the key condensation grass is not with me now. The Zhu family will send someone to deliver the key condensation grass to my residence. So, no matter what you do to me here, you can't take the key condensation grass back. Also, do you really want to fight with me here? You are the daughter of the Hua family, an idol worshipped by the whole city. He smiled smugly, as if betting that Hua Qianwu would not dare to attack him. Hua Qianwu suddenly felt aggrieved. The thing was right in front of her, but she just couldn't get it. This Zhu family and Qian woman had set her up. She could even see tears in her eyes. The man still smiled disapprovingly. Anything else? I'm leaving. Hua Qianwu lowered her head slightly, not knowing what to say. At this time, Lu Chuan stopped the man who was about to leave. Wait, I have a good thing here. You should be interested. As he said that, Lu Chuan took out the black box in his arms. The next moment, the man in white turned back suddenly, his eyes fixed on the box in Lu Chuan's hand. You should have felt that the spiritual energy contained in this box is very unusual. He looked up at Lu Chuan, his expression becoming serious. Is it? Lu Chuan nodded slightly. Yes, it's the thing that haunts you. You really want to get it, right? He took a deep breath, and his heartbeat accelerated. Unexpectedly, he had just arrived in Huacheng, and came into contact with the mission target. He couldn't help but raise his right hand, wanting to take the black box away. He licked his lips. If he could get this box, he would get the biggest reward in the sect. At that time, he might have the opportunity to become the direct disciple of the Great Elder, and become the most outstanding junior warrior in Qian Wu sect. What synod is what you want? Now, do you want to take this thing away? Lu Chuan asked, staring at the other party. He locked his eyes on Lu Chuan. His expression became serious. Of course I want to take it, but I'm afraid you won't give it to me for free, right? By the way, I can exchange the key condensation grass with you, as long as you are willing. After saying that, he smiled disapprovingly. Hearing this, Hua Qianwu hurriedly shook her head and said, impossible. You actually want to exchange the key condensation grass for the branch of the god tree. Dream on. He looked at Hua Qianwu. It seems that you understand the importance of this branch. This exchange is definitely impossible. If there is no branch of the god tree, what is the use of getting the key condensation grass? Therefore, Lu Chuan naturally would not agree to the exchange. You are really dreaming. You want to exchange the key condensation grass for my god tree branch. This is absolutely impossible. Then what do you want to do? Why don't we have a competition? If you win, the god tree branch is yours. If you lose, you have to give the key condensation grass to me. How about that? This proposal made the man in white fall into deep thought. This was a great opportunity. If he could get the god tree branch, he wouldn't have to stay in this flower city and waste time. After thinking for a moment, he looked up at Lu Chuan with a smug smile. Are you serious? Of course, it depends on whether you accept it or not. The man in white laughed heartily. Ha 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 ha. Okay, then I will compete with you. If you lose, you must be obedient and give me the thing. If you cheat, don't blame me for killing you. At that time, your Hua family will not be able to intervene. After the man in white finished speaking, he glared at Hua Qianwu. At this moment, Hua Qianwu suddenly felt hopeful. This guy accepted Lu Chuan's invitation to compete. As long as they could win, they could successfully take the material. Lu Chuan, are you sure? Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan with expectation. Now all her hopes were placed on Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan not only helped their family bring branches of the sacred tree, but also helped them obtain materials. He was definitely a great benefactor of the Hua family. Lu Chuan said calmly, of course, don't worry, I'll definitely take this key condensation grass. Chapter 569, Shineman Warrior. After the man in white agreed to Lu Chuan's challenge, he turned and pointed to a street. There is a martial arts hall opened by the Zhu family over here. We will fight inside. With the Zhu family as notary, none of us can cheat. After he said that, he walked towards the martial arts hall. As he walked, he said, my name is Bai Yi. I hope you can remember my name. You will be defeated by me soon. Looking at his back, Hua Qianwu looked at Lu Chuan and asked worriedly, this guy seems very strong. Are you sure? Lu Xianming died in my hands. Do you think I will be afraid of him? Hua Qianwu nodded slightly, but still reminded, the strength of Xianwu sect is not weak. If this guy is at the top of the Xianwu sect, he will still be a tough opponent. Lu Chuan followed and said, don't worry. No matter what position he has in Xianwu sect, I will not let him go. Gu Xiaorao followed and reminded cautiously, the place where you will compete next is Zhu's martial arts hall. Be careful that he will cheat and refuse to admit his defeat after losing. Gu Xiaorao's reminder made Lu Chuan feel confident. Even if there was such a possibility, he was not afraid at all. If he dares to cheat, the Hua family can break up with them. The Zhu family should not have the courage. Soon, Lu Chuan followed and came to the door of Zhu's martial arts hall. Bai Yi pointed to the door of the martial arts hall and said, come with me. Don't regret it or deny it. Bai Yi was very confident and had already decided that he would win. He was even afraid that Lu Chuan would deny it after losing. Both of them had the same concerns, which were based on their confidence in their own strength. As soon as they entered the martial arts hall, they saw people from the Zhu family coming to greet them. Lu Chuan saw that Zhu Shenghua and everyone from the Zhu family came to greet them and stood respectfully in front of Bai Yi. Mr. Bai is here, please come in. Soon, Zhu Shenghua's eyes were on Hua Qianwu. He was a little surprised and stunned for a moment, and quickly said respectfully, Miss Hua, why are you here in the Zhu family martial arts hall? He asked curiously. Hua Qianwu looked at Bai Yi with a cold face and said, you ask him. It's like this, Master Zhu, Miss Hua came to me and wanted to take back the key condensation grass from me. Zhu Shenghua laughed quickly, Miss Hua, this rule can't be broken. If you want the auction item, you should bid for it yourself. Since Mr. Bai has already bid for the key condensation grass, then you shouldn't ask him for it again. It's not good and not polite. Hearing this, Lu Chuan smiled disdainfully. Master Zhu, there's no need to play dumb. You and Bai Yi jointly took this key condensation grass and didn't intend to give it to Hua Qianwu at all. No matter how high the price she bids, she will be higher. Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua's old face froze and the corners of his mouth twitched twice. Who are you? Don't talk nonsense here. When did I collude with him? This is something he bid for himself. What does it have to do with me? He was a little anxious and no longer as calm as before. Seeing this, Hua Qianwu said calmly, Master Zhu, don't be impatient. I don't care about this. Now Lu Chuan wants to have a competition with Bai Yi to decide whether to keep the key condensation grass. We are here just to borrow your venue. Zhu Shenghua looked at Bai Yi and asked hurriedly, Mr. Bai, are you serious? Do you have to gamble with the key condensation grass? Master Zhu, don't worry. If he loses, he has to give the branch in his hand to me. This bet is not a loss. Hearing this, Zhu Shenghua suddenly realized that it was no wonder that this kid dared to accept Lu Chuan's competition. It turned out to be for the branch. If the branch can be taken away, the Hua family's spirit tree will surely die, and the Hua family will inevitably decline. In the future, the top leader of Hua Cheng will be their Zhu family. Zhu Shenghua couldn't help but feel proud. He looked at Lu Chuan and said with a smile, boy, work hard. Not everyone dares to touch the talented warriors of Xianwu sect. I will never forget that you seriously injured my son. Zhu Shenghua gritted his teeth and said, then turned and left, walking towards the seat next to the arena. Bailey looked at Lu Chuan and said, "Come on, let me show you the strength of Xian Wu sect. This is a rare show of strength by a strong man like you frogs in the well. Watch carefully and learn well." He rolled up his sleeves and jumped onto the arena with ease. Standing on the stage, he looked down at Hua Qian Wu and said disdainfully, "The days when you can still be arrogant are numbered. If the spiritual tree in your family dies, it won't be long before your Hua family is destroyed. When I come to Hua Cheng again at that time, I'm afraid I won't see your arrogant attitude anymore. Who knows, I might see you in a brothel. After all, you are so beautiful and very suitable to be the top prostitute." Hearing this, Hua Qian Wu became furious and scolded, "How dare you insult me like this? My Hua family will not forgive you." Bailey spread his hands. "Really? Go back and ask your father if he has the courage to go to war with our Xian Wu sect. Even if you lend him 10 times the courage, I'm afraid he won't dare." After that, he laughed, and his laughter was full of arrogance. Then, he turned his head and looked at Lu Chuan. "Without the Hua family, you are nothing more than a gorilla. Under the power of our Xian Wu sect, you will only be hunted down. By then, the two beauties around you will probably abandon you." Hearing this, Gu Xiaorao raised her finger and pointed at him, angrily scolding, "Can you utter a single human word from that dog mouth of yours?" Bailey touched his chin and revealed a faint smile. "I'm the kind of person who speaks human words to human beings and speaks dog words to dogs. Do you understand?" After he said that, he turned his gaze to Lu Chuan. "Come on, let me see what you, a little rookie, are capable of." After that, he turned and walked into the center of the arena. Gu Xiaorao was so angry that she put her hands on her hips and looked at Lu Chuan, saying, "This bastard is so mean." Lu Chuan patted her shoulder and whispered, "Don't be angry for that bastard. I'll make him kneel down and apologize to you later." Gu Xiaorao then eased a little. "He dares to be so arrogant. I guess he has some confidence. When you go up to fight him, you must be extra careful." Lu Chuan nodded slightly. "Don't worry." After that, he jumped onto the arena. Gu Xiaosang raised his hands and shouted loudly, "Come on, Lu Chuan. Beat this bastard down hard." Hua Qian Wu's eyes were on Lu Chuan's back, and she was extremely nervous. The future of their family depends on Lu Chuan. Now, I think the competition can begin. The rule is that one party loses consciousness or is knocked out of the arena, and it is considered the loser. The competition between the two sides officially begins now. On the arena, Lu Chuan looked at Bailey and said, "Let me see what level Xian Wuman is at." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 570, The victory and defeat are clear. On the ring, both of them were ready. Bailey did not use any weapons, and Lu Chuan was also unarmed. The two walked back and forth in circles, testing each other. Bailey stared at Lu Chuan's fists with his eyes fixed, his attention very focused. This competition was very important. If Bailey won, he would not only get the branches of the sacred tree, but also become the disciple of the great elder, and get a lot of gold and various martial arts. Similarly, it would also destroy the Hua family, and allow Xian Wuman to support her family and Hua Cheng to come to power. All these huge benefits told him that he could not lose this competition. For Lu Chuan, there was not so much pressure. The survival or demise of the Hua family did not affect Lu Chuan much, and the strength of the opponent in front of him was not strong. As long as he played steadily, he would definitely win. Swish. Suddenly, Bailey stepped forward abruptly. His steps were very agile, and he rushed in front of Lu Chuan in 3 or 2 steps. Then, he hit Lu Chuan with a right swing. Seeing this, Lu Chuan quickly raised his hand to block it. Bang! With a muffled sound, Lu Chuan blocked Bailey's attack. But at this moment, Bailey suddenly gritted his teeth, and an internal force spread out from the inside out, reaching the peak of his fist. Bang! Exclamation mark. A dull impact shook Lu Chuan back again and again, and his entire right arm felt slightly numb. In the first fight, he defeated the enemy. In Bailey's eyes, his advantage was quite strong. It seemed that he had foreseen the result of the competition. He would win. Off the court, Zhu Shenghe and others were excited when they saw this. If Lu Chuan was defeated here directly, and the branches of the sacred tree were taken away, the Hua family would fall apart. It would be easy for their Zhu family to take over. Zhu Shenghe clenched his fists and became nervous. Lu Chuan, your strength is just like this. He frowned and asked, how did Yang Jiui die in your hands? It's really weird. I'm afraid you didn't plot against him. Lu Chuan wanted to laugh when he heard this. Yang Jiui was just a waste. Isn't it normal for him to die? It's just one punch. Are you so proud of it? Lu Chuan said calmly. Bai Yi clenched his fist again and rushed towards Lu Chuan. Then I'll punch you again and see if you can take this punch. He clenched his right fist and swung it towards Lu Chuan. A stream of air spun around his right arm, as if to help his fist attack with a more fierce momentum. Seeing this, Lu Chuan clenched his fist and collided with it without saying a word. Seeing this, Bai Yi laughed out loud. Ha ha ha. Dare to confront me head on. You are looking for death. Bang! Exclamation mark. The next moment, the fists of the two collided with each other, and a violent shock broke out. Bai Yi released his inner strength crazily, constantly strengthening his fist. He roared in a low voice, kneel down. He almost used up all his strength with this punch, releasing all his strength. However, Lu Chuan also released his inner strength, and only exerted 30% of his strength, and released a huge amount of energy. The next moment, Bai Yi was knocked out by the huge force, and fell heavily to the ground, rolling on the ground for several rounds before stopping. The moment he was knocked out, Bai Yi's mind was blank. This was completely different from what he had originally imagined. He had clearly tried his best to resolve the battle as soon as possible. However, after this wave of confrontation, he was beaten so badly. This gap in strength was somewhat shocking. Bai Yi, who was lying on the ground, quickly supported himself and stood up with difficulty. He couldn't stay on the ground for too long. After he stood up, he stared at Lu Chuan with gloomy eyes, and he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Lu Chuan, I didn't expect it. I didn't expect it. You actually had some strength. It seems that I really underestimated you. Zhu Shenghe, who was gloating in the audience just now looked serious. Bai Yi looks like he is going to lose. They can't lose. If they lose here, it will be very difficult for their Zhu family to turn things around next. Bai Yi, you saw your strength quickly. Don't give him another chance. Zhu Shenghe stood up anxiously and shouted at him. Bai Yi turned his head and glared at him, scolding. Do I need you to teach me how to fight? Zhu Shenghe quickly shut up. Their Zhu family is not even a match for the Hua family now, let alone offending the Cheyenne Wu sect. That is simply courting death. After sitting down, Zhu Shenghe began to pray in his heart, hoping that Bai Yi could defeat his opponent, so that their Zhu family would have a chance to turn things around completely. Bai Yi looked at Lu Chuan and said angrily, Lu Chuan, you don't deserve this branch of the sacred tree. It should be returned to the hands of our Cheyenne Wu sect. You don't have the final say. If you want it, come and get it yourself. Lu Chuan hooked his finger at him. Bai Yi was immediately enraged, clenched his fists, and rushed towards Lu Chuan. At this time, Lu Chuan had relaxed his mind and fought very easily. From the brief fight just now, he felt that Bai Yi's strength was only at the 7th or 8th level of the Martial King realm. This strength, in this flower city, can be regarded as upper middle class. But compared with Lu Chuan, the gap is still huge. He didn't even need to use the power of the divine fire to easily kill this guy. The Cheyenne Wu sect sent a waste here and wanted to take the branches of the divine tree from me. It's really wishful thinking. Then, Lu Chuan rushed towards Bai Yi. Lu Chuan's figure moved, and the whole audience instantly paid attention to him. Lu Chuan's speed was almost twice as fast as Bai Yi. Bai Yi had just started to move, and Lu Chuan came to him in an instant. Being stared at by Lu Chuan's indifferent eyes, Bai Yi felt cold all over, and his hair stood up. At this moment, his heart was pounding, and he seemed to have a premonition that danger was coming. Extreme shadow step. Bai Yi shouted in a low voice, and the next moment, his legs turned into a residual shadow, and almost instantly, he fled from the original place, pulling away from Lu Yu. He leaned on the edge of the arena. Although he pulled away, he still had no hope of winning. He could hide for a while, but he couldn't hide forever. Bailey put his right hand behind his back and took out 3 darts from his waist. If he can't beat him openly, then he'll use the dark tricks. He has been fighting all the way in Cheyenne Woodgate, and he has used a lot of insidious tricks. He is already familiar with this. Lu Chuan was a little surprised to see him pull away instantly after using martial arts. It seems that the martial arts in Kunlun domain are all good. This is indeed a good place to learn martial arts. It seems that I have to take time to pick some excellent martial arts to learn. But for now, I still have to defeat my opponent quickly. Lu Chuan rushed towards Bailey again. This time, Bailey had already clenched the dart in his hand and could shoot it at any time. However, it is better to get a little closer because he doesn't want his hidden weapon to make a mistake. Chapter 571 Hidden Weapons. Bailey leaned against the guardrail around the arena with one hand behind him and had already taken out 3 darts, ready to shoot at any time. I admit that you are still quite capable, but the real strong man cannot be distinguished until the last moment. He licked his lips, staring at Lu Chuan with his eyes, as if he was staring at his prey. You are right, the winner has not been decided yet, but the winner will be revealed soon. After Lu Chuan finished speaking, he rushed towards him. Swish. The next moment, Lu Chuan's figure appeared in front of Bailey. At a distance of 3 or 4 meters, Bailey suddenly rolled to the side, temporarily avoiding Lu Chuan's surprise attack. Then, he directly threw 3 darts with his backhand and shot them towards Lu Chuan. Swish! Exclamation mark. 3 darts cut through the air and shot towards Lu Chuan's abdomen. If he was hit by a dart and his abdomen was injured, he would probably continue to bleed and become weak. Lu Chuan really didn't expect that this guy would suddenly throw out 3 darts. Isn't this competition a fist fight? Lu Chuan didn't dodge and rushed towards Bailey again. In this short moment, the decision made by Lu Chuan made Bailey feel unbelievable. This guy didn't even try to dodge his darts, and he rushed straight at him. He was so brave. Swish! The dart penetrated Lu Chuan's clothes and stabbed his lower abdomen. The blood instantly stained the clothes, and a dazzling bright red appeared in everyone's eyes. Seeing this, Hua Qianwu immediately shouted angrily. The despicable and insidious villain actually used a hidden weapon. At this time, Zhu Shenghua stood up and said something fair. Miss Hua, we didn't set so many rules at the beginning. We didn't say that darts couldn't be used. This is Lu Chuan's own negligence. It's not Bailey's fault. If he feels unfair, he can choose to give up. I will judge him as the loser. Zhu Shenghua said seriously, openly standing up for Bailey. Hua Qianwu glanced at Zhu Shenghua. Although she was angry, she did not show it. She still believed in Lu Chuan. Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang beside her were obviously not as worried about Lu Chuan as Hua Qianwu. It was not that they did not care about Lu Chuan, but they knew Lu Chuan and knew how terrible his 9 heavens mysterious fire was for healing. At this moment, Lu Chuan rushed to Bailey. Seeing that Lu Chuan was as fierce as a tiger, Bailey hurriedly began to maneuver around the guardrail. He fled in a desperate situation and even crawled on all 4s occasionally. Bailey fled for a distance and suddenly turned back and saw Lu Chuan following closely behind him and caught up again. Asshole, why are you like nothing happened? He was a little panicked. His dart hit Lu Chuan's abdomen and heavy bleeding was certain. If he did not use his internal force to stop the bleeding in time, he would soon lose his combat effectiveness. But Lu Chuan in front of him was not affected at all, as if the 3 darts did not exist at all. I originally wanted to have a bare-handed hand-to-hand fight with you, but I didn't expect you to suddenly use a hidden weapon against me. In this case, I will send you on your way. Lu Chuan intercepted Bailey in a corner, forcing him to retreat. At this time, Bailey looked at Lu Chuan and gritted his teeth and said, Lu Chuan, you dare to kill me? You'd better think it through first. My darts are coated with highly toxic substances. The toxins have now invaded your body. You will die of the poison sooner or later. Beg for mercy from me now, and I can spare your life. He slowly stood up, patted the dust off his body, and looked at Lu Chuan with a little complacency. You are really fierce. When you rushed towards me, it felt like a tiger attacking me. But now, I'm afraid you can't save yourself. If you admit defeat in time, I will spare your life. Otherwise, you will slowly wait for death. Seeing this, Lu Chuan looked down at his abdomen. The dart pierced through the clothes and hung on the clothes. He reached out and took the dart off and found that it was indeed coated with purple liquid. You actually used a poisonous hidden weapon to plot against your opponent. Are all the warriors of your Cheyenne Wu sect learning this kind of low-level tricks? Bailey smiled coldly. I said, the one who wins at the last moment is the real strong one. I can only say that you are still slightly inferior to me. You don't need to care how I win. You just need to know that I'm the winner in the end. The next moment, he pulled out a dagger from behind, and after holding the dagger in reverse, he rushed towards Lu Chuan. Ha ha ha, prepare to die. He laughed happily, and his tone was full of pride. Zhu Shenghua stood in the audience, and his heart was suddenly very excited. He couldn't wait to see Bailey kill Lu Chuan. In this way, the end of the Hua family's demise would be doomed. Hua Cayenne Wu clenched her fists, gritted her teeth, and said in a deep voice, this guy deserves to die. She turned her head to look at Gu Xiaorao, and suddenly became curious. Why do I see that you don't seem to be worried at all? Gu Xiaorao shrugged and said calmly, Lu Chuan just defeated Lu Xianming. It is not difficult to kill this guy, but this bastard used poison to plot against Lu Chuan. It is hard to say who will win or lose now. Gu Xiaorao still disagreed and said, the damage caused by that little hidden weapon and that little poison are nothing to Lu Chuan. Hearing this, Hua Cayenne Wu suddenly felt extremely curious. She knew that she didn't know much about Lu Chuan, so she didn't know what cards Lu Chuan had. But seeing that Gu Xiaorao was so relieved, her nervousness eased a lot. After all, Gu Xiaorao was Lu Chuan's fiancé, and if she had to worry about Lu Chuan's safety, it should be Gu Xiaorao who should worry. Hua Cayenne Wu took a deep breath and calmed down a lot. She stared at Bailey with her eyes fixed. This guy rushed forward very quickly, and his face was very arrogant and proud, as if he had won the game. Swish. Bailey rushed to Lu Chuan in an instant, swung the dagger, and slashed it towards Lu Chuan's chest. The next moment, Lu Chuan suddenly raised his hand and quickly grabbed Bailey's arm holding the knife. The huge force came, as if to crush his forearm. Bailey felt a sharp pain, and quickly gritted his teeth and let go of his right hand. Then he quickly stretched out his left hand, caught the falling dagger, and stabbed Lu Chuan again. This bastard reacted quite quickly. After his right arm was controlled, he immediately changed hands and attacked again. Seeing this, Lu Chuan raised his foot and kicked Bailey in the abdomen. Get out. Bailey's hand was tightly held by Lu Chuan, and it was impossible for him to retreat and dodge. The next moment, Lu Chuan kicked Bailey in the abdomen directly, and the fierce force poured out instantly. Bailey flew backwards towards the edge of the arena like a kite with its string cut off. Boom. Bailey landed with a thud, smashing the bricks to pieces with his flesh and blood. Chapter 572, Resurrection. Bailey fell to the ground, blood spurting out of his mouth. His bones were broken, and the heart-wrenching pain made his consciousness blurred. He looked at the ceiling, and suddenly a faint fear arose in his heart. The power of the kick just now was too fierce, and he could not resist it at all, and it almost took his life. The difference in strength was really amazing. However, what Bailey was most puzzled about was why his venom had no effect at all. If the venom had not failed to work, he would never have lost so miserably. He raised his hand and touched his chest. Almost all his ribs were broken, and his lungs were filled with blood, making it very difficult to breathe. At this time, the whole martial arts hall was silent, with only Bailey's wailing from time to time. Zhu Shenghua stood in the audience, his eyes widened, and he looked at Lu Chuan in disbelief. He thought there would be a little difference in strength between the two, and Lu Chuan might be stronger, but he didn't expect that he would be so much stronger. Bailey first used hidden weapons and darts, and then took out his own weapons to fight with the unarmed Lu Chuan, but he was still beaten and couldn't fight back. The difference in strength is simply terrible. At this time, Zhu Shenghua was extremely regretful. If Bailey died here, wouldn't his plan be ruined? He actually wanted to take this opportunity to overthrow the Hua family and let the Zhu family sit firmly on the first family in Huacheng. Now, I'm afraid it's completely impossible. The Hua family has Lu Chuan as a helper. After reviving the spirit tree, the Hua family will only continue to rule this Huacheng. Zhu Shenghua hurriedly got up and walked quickly towards Hua Cayenne Wu. When Hua Cayenne Wu saw Lu Chuan's kick, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. This competition seemed to be over. Guzayadora and Guzayana-sang also relaxed. Seeing that Bailey was beaten to almost crippled, he was basically stable. At this time, Zhu Shenghe hurried over. He stood beside Huakai and Wu, bent down, and showed a flattering smile. He looked up at Huakai and Wu, his eyes narrowed with laughter. "Miss Hua, this is all a misunderstanding. Don't you want the key condensation grass? I'll send someone to your house right now. I don't want a penny. It's free. Just consider it my apology." Huakai and Wu looked down at him and said coldly, "Aren't you not going to give it to me directly? That was just a show for those idiots in the auction house. If you want it, Miss Hua, I will definitely keep it for you." He continued to maintain a flattering smile, which was very fake, and people could tell what this guy was thinking at a glance. Huakai and Wu nodded disapprovingly. "Okay, then you quickly send someone to deliver the key condensation grass to our house, and I won't pursue you." Hearing this, Zhu Shenghe was immediately very excited and said respectfully, "Miss Hua is broad-minded and really a good person. You should accept this key condensation grass." Lu Chuan came to the edge of the arena, leaned on the guardrail, and looked at Huakai and Wu and Guzayadorao. "The competition is over. Let's go back." Huakai and Wu nodded slightly and said, "Thank you for your trouble. I fought with someone for this key condensation grass. It's just a piece of cake. It's easy to kill this guy," Lu Chuan said, and he was about to flip down from the arena. At this moment, Guzayadorao suddenly raised her right hand, pointed at Lu Chuan, and shouted loudly, "Lu Chuan, be careful behind you." Guzayadorao shouted in shock. Hearing this, Lu Chuan frowned slightly, and looked back quickly. He was shocked to see that Beiyi's figure had stood up again. Beiyi stood up from the shallow pit tremblingly, with his arms hanging down, as if he had lost control. He slowly raised his head, and stared at Lu Chuan with a pair of bloodshot eyes. I haven't lost yet." Lu Chuan felt strange. His kick just now almost killed him instantly. Even if he didn't die, he was only hanging on for a breath. But now, he can actually stand up again, which is really amazing. For a moment, everyone in the audience regarded Beiyi as the focus. Zhu Shenghe opened his mouth slightly and looked at Beiyi in surprise. He could see the power of Lu Chuan's kick just now. It really takes extremely strong willpower to withstand this kick and stand up again. However, Zhu Shenghe did not think that Beiyi still had the strength to fight. Even Huakai and Wu and Guzayadorao thought that it was futile for him to stand up again. Guzayana-sang looked at Beiyi's figure and couldn't help but sigh. Is this guy an indestructible cockroach? It's too hard to kill. It's just a dying struggle. Just go up and add a knife and it will be over, Huakai and Wu said disapprovingly. However, to everyone's surprise, Beiyi's drooping arms actually bounced back and reconnected the joints. He raised his hands, supported his waist, and stood up straight. Then, he turned his head to look at Lu Chuan and shouted ferociously, "Lu Chuan, I must kill you today to vent my anger. You actually forced me into this state. I can't forgive you." From his voice, you can hear that the anger in his heart can no longer be contained. Seeing this, Lu Chuan turned around and looked at him, saying seriously, "I didn't expect you to be so tenacious. Come again and see who is afraid of who." But at this moment, Lu Chuan suddenly felt that the bronze sword on his back began to tremble, and the sword body kept shaking on his back, which made Lu Chuan feel a little uneasy. He quickly raised his hand and pulled out the bronze sword. Seeing the light lingering on the sword body, Lu Chuan immediately realized that this guy named Beiyi had an evil spirit in his body. At this moment, the evil spirit in his body played a role, repairing his body and giving him powerful strength. It seems that you are really not simple. The evil thing in your body seems to be very powerful, which allows you to have a last burst of light and come back to life. But you are dead today. Beiyi stepped forward, and every step became particularly heavy. Soon, he walked towards Lu Chuan quickly. His arms were muscular, and black lines spread under his skin, looking extremely weird. "Lu Chuan, you are dead. Hand over the branch of the sacred tree on you." The next moment, he rushed towards Lu Chuan, several times faster than before, and his fierce momentum made people feel terrified. Huakai and Wu was frightened when she saw this. It was the first time she saw the so-called evil spirit. This guy was resurrected by the evil spirit and even gained such a powerful force. She couldn't help but start to worry about Lu Chuan. Beiyi's strength seemed to have been greatly improved. Swish. Suddenly, Beiyi suddenly swung a punch and hit Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan quickly raised his elbow to block it. However, the power of this punch was so great that Lu Chuan was a little surprised. With this punch, Lu Chuan was knocked back 5 or 6 meters, and his back was directly against the guardrail, almost falling out. Lu Chuan touched his elbow and looked at Beiyi with some surprise. This guy really completed the transformation. Chapter 573 The Last Gamble. Under the arena, Zhu Shenghe looked at Beiyi's figure and froze in place. He was a little dazed. He didn't expect that Beiyi hadn't lost yet, and he actually stood up again. The kick just now had severely injured him and almost killed him on the spot. But unexpectedly, with this last breath, he actually recovered completely. Now Beiyi is more powerful, with a violent aura all over his body and fierce killing intent in his eyes. At this moment, Zhu Shenghe was a little dazed. He couldn't say who would win and who would lose in the final duel between the two. It's too hard to judge. Gu Xiaorao looked at Beiyi's figure, frowned, and murmured, "It's the evil spirit again. There is one in Xiaoyao City, and it actually appeared here. It's really weird." Xiaorao, how much do you think the strength of Beiyi will be improved after the evil spirit possesses him? Hua Qianwu looked at her and asked. Gu Xiaorao shook her head a little dazedly. The battle between Lu Chuan and the evil spirit had not been carried out much. Moreover, after Lu Chuan got the bronze sword, he should have a strong ability to restrain evil spirits. Therefore, Gu Xiaorao still believed that Lu Chuan would kill Beiyi. Lu Chuan will definitely win. He has the bronze sword in his hand. After Gu Xiaorao finished speaking, Hua Qianwu also focused on the sword of the bronze sword. The bronze sword looks very ordinary, but when it was just pulled out, the sword body was actually emitting light and seemed to vibrate on its own. That feeling is like reminding Lu Chuan. Hua Qianwu said curiously. Yes, this bronze sword can indeed remind Lu Chuan whether he encounters evil spirits. Of course, this is not the most important thing. The key is that this sword can kill evil spirits and has a strong restraining effect. Hua Qianwu was relieved when she heard this. Since it has a restraining effect, then I feel relieved. At this time, on the martial arts stage, Beiyi had just been blocked by Lu Chuan with a punch, and he was about to attack again without saying a word. Swish. He rushed towards Lu Chuan quickly, holding the dagger tightly in his hand, and stabbed at Lu Chuan. Seeing this, Lu Chuan quickly dodged sideways and avoided Beiyi's attack. What's wrong? Have you become a dodge? With this, you still want to defeat me? Beiyi shouted arrogantly. Lu Chuan said disdainfully, if you didn't use extra strength, would you be my opponent? Stop talking nonsense. This is also part of strength. Just now you almost killed me with a kick. Now, I want to return it. He roared and rushed towards Lu Chuan again. At this moment, Lu Chuan didn't tolerate him at all. He directly grasped the bronze sword and prepared to kill the evil spirit in his body. You want to stop me with a broken sword? Dream on. Swish. The next moment, Lu Chuan stabbed out with a sword, stabbing towards Beiyi's chest. Seeing this, Beiyi quickly dodged. But then, Lu Chuan swung the bronze sword one after another, beating Beiyi back step by step, and sweat began to break out on his forehead. Beiyi retreated quickly, feeling uneasy. The sword in your hand. It affects me. Beiyi could feel that, whenever Lu Chuan swung the sword, he could feel a sense of weakness in his body. He seemed to have a vague idea that the sword in Lu Chuan's hand was quite extraordinary. Swish. Suddenly, Lu Chuan swung the sword and stabbed Beiyi's arm. Then, the bronze sword caused great damage to the evil spirit in Beiyi's body. The evil spirit was enraged, and at the same time, Beiyi's anger surged and rushed towards Lu Chuan. I will tear you apart. He roared loudly and rushed towards Lu Chuan. After being strengthened by the evil spirit, his fighting power almost reached the peak level of the Martial King realm. However, this strength is still not enough for Lu Chuan. Only those who have reached the Martial Emperor realm have the strength to fight Lu Chuan on equal terms. Then, Beiyi rushed towards Lu Chuan, clenched his fists, and punched Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan quickly stepped back to avoid his fist. The next moment, this iron fist smashed the stone guardrail one by one. The power of this punch was much stronger than before. Lu Chuan roughly estimated in his heart that this man's strength was about to reach the 8th level of the Martial King realm. With this strength, if Uakai and Wu Guzaya or Aon Guzaya Sang were to fight, I'm afraid that all three of them would not be opponents. Lu Chuan didn't plan to waste too much time on this guy. The evil spirit in this guy's body seemed very strong, just in time to test the power of the bronze sword. Lu Chuan clenched the bronze sword and stabbed it towards Bai Yi's chest. As soon as the blade pointed over, Bai Yi felt uneasy in his heart, as if this bronze sword was his nemesis, so he didn't even want to get close. He couldn't help but retreat 2 steps and looked at the bronze sword in Lu Chuan's hand cautiously. "What is the origin of this broken sword in your hand?" he asked nervously, not daring to get close to the bronze sword in Lu Chuan's hand. "It's just an ordinary bronze sword, can't you see? I didn't kick your eyes just now." Bai Yi heard this and clenched his teeth. His sixth sense told him that he must not be touched by this sword. However, he had summoned the evil spirit and had already played all his cards. If he couldn't kill the opponent, it would be a big loss. After this state ends, he will fall into a near-death state again, and then he will have no way to survive. Seeing this, he couldn't hesitate any longer. Waiting any longer would be courting death. Then, he rushed towards Lu Chuan again. This time, he stared at the bronze sword in Lu Chuan's hand with his eyes fixed and didn't dare to touch the sword at all. "Even if I die, I will drag you to be buried with me," he roared, holding the dagger tightly, and threw it towards Lu Chuan. He didn't plan to come up and fight directly, but threw out the dagger for a long-range attack. Lu Chuan raised the bronze sword and easily blocked Bai Yi's dagger. Clang! Sparks flew. Lu Chuan raised the bronze sword and rushed towards Bai Yi. The first move of the Zaiao sword manual is to kill. Lu Chuan swung the bronze sword in his hand continuously and slashed at Bai Yi's limbs. Seeing this, Bai Yi hurriedly stopped and wanted to take a defensive posture. But the next moment, before the sword blade touched his body, it directly caused damage to the evil spirit in his body. Swish! Black smoke came out of Bai Yi's body, and he felt severe pain all over his body. The first move is to kill. The sword blade is swung out quickly and slashed at the enemy's limbs. Even if it is half a meter away, it can still cause damage to the evil spirit. When the evil spirit's limbs are injured, the enemy will lose the ability to move. Gradually, the evil spirit will be peeled off from the enemy's body. At this time, Zhu Shenghua, who was in the audience, was extremely nervous. He wished that Bai Yi could stand up quickly. Whether his Zhu family can defeat the Hua family and ascend to the throne of the first family in Hua Cheng depends on Bai Yi's last fight. At this time, Bai Yi's limbs were in great pain, and he soon lost control of his body. His whole body went limp, and he immediately shouted in horror, What tricks did you use? Why can't I move my limbs?" Chapter 574 Killing the Opponent. Lu Chuan put away the bronze sword and walked towards Bai Yi. At this time, Bai Yi's limbs seemed to have lost control, and the whole person collapsed to the ground, like a puppet that had lost control. He looked up at Lu Chuan, his eyes full of fear, and trembled. "What did you do? Your sword didn't touch me at all." He couldn't understand what Lu Chuan had done, let alone the power of the bronze sword behind Lu Chuan. Lu Chuan stood in front of him, looking down at him, and said calmly, "Don't you know where your power comes from? I think you should know it in your heart. This is my own strength. What does it have to do with you? I just released my trump card. I'm fighting you openly. What nonsense are you talking about?" he shouted angrily, not daring to respond to Lu Chuan's question directly. However, Lu Chuan could see from his panicked expression. This guy knows what he knows in his heart, and he knows where his power comes from. It's just that he doesn't have the face to say it. Being possessed by an evil spirit, relying on the evil spirit to improve one's own strength when dying, is completely relying on external forces. And it is the most evil external force. Evil spirits are a scourge to the world. Everyone knows that they are all avoiding them. However, these bastards, in order to make themselves stronger and maintain their own strength and status, are willing to sacrifice their bodies to become stronger, which is really despicable. The evil spirit in your body has been completely killed by me. Shouldn't you thank me? I helped you get rid of the evil spirit in your body. Bai gritted his teeth and said angrily, "You bastard, do I need you to help me? If you didn't have that broken sword, I would have killed you by now." At this moment, Bai was extremely angry. If the man in front of him hadn't got a sword that could kill evil spirits, he would never have ended up like this. With the help of the evil spirit, his whole body strength soared, and he fully believed that he was capable of killing Lu Chuan. The reason for his defeat, he only thought it was his bad luck. "Without this sword, you are nothing," Bai said angrily. Then, Lu Chuan raised his right hand and released the 9 heavens mysterious fire. Seeing the gorgeous flame, everyone became curious. Bai looked at the strange flame in Lu Chuan's hand and his eyes widened. How did you make fire out of thin air in your hand? Didn't you say that I defeated you with the bronze sword? Then I will let you feel the power of this flame next." The next moment, Lu Chuan squatted in front of him and grabbed his wrist. Boom. The flame instantly spread to Bai's arm, and the flame burned fiercely and soon spread to his entire right arm. Ah! Bai opened his mouth as wide as possible, and a heart-wrenching roar came out of his mouth. His face was hideous and his whole body was twitching violently. The whole person was like being electrocuted, twitching all over, and the unprecedented pain made him unbearable. This piercing scream echoed throughout the martial arts hall. Hearing this voice, Zhu Shenghua quickly lowered his head and covered his ears. The rest of the Zhu family members were also frightened by the screams and trembled all over. They dared not look up at the arena. At this time, a fat figure slowly walked down from the stairwell on the second floor. Zhu Erfeng went down the stairs and hurriedly looked over. What happened? Who is screaming? However, when she saw Lu Chuan and Bai who was lying on the ground and struggling, she was frightened, and her face turned pale. She still remembered Lu Chuan's figure clearly. Wasn't this the man she had offended at the city gate? Now he had come to the door and even beat Bai, their Zhu family's helper, into this state. At this moment, Zhu Erfeng was frightened and trembled all over. After seeing Bai's tragic end, she began to be afraid, worried that she would be the next one. Then, she fainted with fear and fell to the ground. The rest of the Zhu family members were also terrified at this moment, fearing that Lu Chuan would do the same to them. At this time, Lu Chuan looked at Bai who was struggling on the ground and said, "You just said so much nonsense, why don't you continue now?" Bai looked at Lu Chuan with his eyes, his lips trembling constantly, and said weakly, "Please spare me. On behalf of Cheyenne Wu sect, I will no longer be your enemy. We don't deserve the branches of the sacred tree. Aren't you determined to get it? Why don't you want it now?" Bai coughed twice, and blood kept flowing out of the corners of his mouth. "Let me go back. I will warn the entire Cheyenne Wu sect not to let them be your enemy, and we will have nothing to do with each other in the future," he pleaded. Lu Chuan sneered, "Let you go back? Persuade them not to trouble me? You are really a bullshit. If you go back, I'm afraid they will find someone to deal with me immediately." Bai panicked and explained quickly, "No, I don't dare to fight with you now. Let me go back. I will never dare to come to you again." He was completely scared. The 9 heavens mysterious fire just burned his arm to ashes. In the process, he felt the most extreme pain. He didn't want to endure this kind of pain a second time. If he was not a martial artist with a strong physique, otherwise, the pain just now would have made him faint directly. "No need, you people from Cheyenne Wu sect, I will kill one by one, including you." The next moment, Lu Chuan swung out the bronze sword and stabbed it towards Bai's chest. Puff! The bronze sword pierced Bai's body and blood spurted out. Bai's mouth spurted blood and died immediately. Then, Lu Chuan turned around and looked at Huakayan Wu and the others. "It's solved. Now take back the key condensation grass." At this time, Zhu Shenghua hurriedly walked over and knelt directly in front of Huakayan Wu, with beads of sweat on his forehead. "Miss Hua, please listen to my explanation. Bai just came to our house as a guest. We don't have much to do with him." He looked at Huakayan Wu nervously, worried that his explanation would be useless. Huakayan Wu knew what was going on. When Lu Chuan and Bai were fighting just now, Zhu Shenghua looked at Bai worriedly, fearing that Bai would lose. Zhu Shenghua knew in his heart that, as long as Bai won, their Zhu family would become the boss of Huacheng. The first family in Huacheng. This status is quite tempting. If it can be achieved, let alone other things, he Zhu Shenghua can pick and choose any of the thousands of dancers in Huacheng. If the Hua family loses, Hua Qianwu, a dancer of this beauty, will be remembered by more people. Zhu Shenghua felt very sorry, but now that things had come to this, he could only accept his fate and give in to the Hua family again. All the beautiful fantasies before were now shattered, all because of Bai Yi's defeat. Lu Chuan got off the arena and walked towards Hua Qianwu. The Zhu family's intention to rebel is hidden deep enough. Chapter 575, Spiritual Bamboo. Lu Chuan's words frightened Zhu Shenghua so much that his whole body trembled. Mr. Lu, please don't tease me. How dare I have the intention of committing a crime? My Zhu family will be the most loyal partner of the Hua family in the future. We will obey whatever the Hua family asks us to do. He lowered his head slightly, showing a false smile on his face, and scratched his head awkwardly from time to time. Lu Chuan looked at Hua Qianwu and said, "What are you going to do? I don't have time to deal with the Zhu family for the time being. Let's collect materials first." After saying that, Hua Qianwu turned her head to look at Zhu Shenghua and said, "Bring the key condensation grass here." Zhu Shenghua hurriedly shouted at the servant behind him, "Go and bring the key condensation grass." "What are you doing?" The servant turned and left in a panic, and soon came over with a red rectangular box. "Master, the key condensation grass is inside." Zhu Shenghua took the box and quickly handed it to Hua Qianwu with both hands. "Miss Hua, please have a look." Hua Qianwu took the box, opened the lid, and took a look. A stream of spiritual energy flowed out from the cracks in the box. Seeing this, Hua Qianwu nodded with satisfaction. "The key condensation grass is right here. We got it." She looked at Lu Chuan and said. Gu Xiaosang came to Lu Chuan's side, patted Lu Chuan on the shoulder, and said with a smile, "Sure, Bai Yi didn't even have the strength to fight back against you." Gu Xiaorao looked at Lu Chuan and said, "Let's go back and continue to look for other materials." Lu Chuan nodded slightly and looked at Hua Qianwu. "What other materials are there?" "Spiritual bamboo, Wanji flower, and Xiangsu grass. There are only 3 left, all of which are relatively rare materials." Lu Chuan looked at Zhu Shenghua and said coldly, "Remember, Xian woman can't help you. If you dare to have contact with them again, you will die." Zhu Shenghua hurriedly nodded respectfully. "No problem, I will remember your warning, and will never dare to have any contact with them again." When Lu Chuan was about to leave here, he suddenly remembered Zhu Lingayan. So he asked again, "By the way, how is Zhu Lingayan now?" Zhu Shenghua was stunned for a moment when he heard this, and soon reacted. Lu Chuan's information was brought back by Zhu Lingayan, so he thought that Lu Chuan was going to make trouble for Zhu Lingayan. But the Zhu family must not be harmed by this girl Zhu Lingayan. "Don't worry, I have arranged a marriage for her to the eldest son of the Guo family in the south of the city. From now on, her life will only be about taking care of her husband and children, and she will no longer have anything to do with you." Lu Chuan raised his hand to interrupt him and said, "Cancel this marriage. Also, let Zhu Lingayan go free. You can't interfere with where she wants to go and what she wants to do." This was beyond Zhu Shenghua's expectations. He originally thought that Lu Chuan wanted to cause trouble for Zhu Lingayan and was Zhu Lingayan's enemy. But looking at the situation in front of him, he seemed to be speaking for Zhu Lingayan. "Why?" he asked curiously. "Don't worry about it. Do what I say. Do you understand?" Zhu Shenghua hurriedly nodded respectfully. "No problem. I will definitely do it. Please rest assured." Lu Chuan turned and walked towards the entrance of the martial arts hall. Hua Qianwu, Gu Xiaorao and Gu Xiaosang followed behind Lu Chuan. Gu Xiaorao walked beside Lu Chuan and asked, "You don't have to help Zhu Lingayan. She is not our friend. She is a person obsessed with martial arts. In the secular world, she has cultivated to the level of martial king through her own efforts. This perseverance and potential should never be underestimated. Although this strength may be a little lacking in Kunlun domain, her potential is not small. If you help her and let her continue to practice in Kunlun domain, she may grow stronger in the future." Lu Chuan continued to explain, "She is not bad, but she is too eager to improve her martial arts strength." Gu Xiaorao shrugged disapprovingly. "I hope she can remember your help." The group walked out of Zoo's martial arts hall and came to the street outside. Huakai and Wu asked a servant to take the key condensation grass back to the house. Then, she looked at Lu Chuan and said, "Next, let's go find the spiritual bamboo." "Oh, do you know where this thing is?" Lu Chuan looked at Huakai and Wu curiously. "I don't know." "Then why did you choose this first?" "Because, in the flower valley nearest to the city, there is a large bamboo forest. If we look there, we can narrow the scope and may find the spiritual bamboo quickly." Lu Chuan shrugged. "Let's go, try our luck there, and see if we can find it." So, the four of them got on the Hua family's carriage and started to drive out of the city. In the west of the city, there are vast mountains, and between the peaks are all kinds of flowers. From a distance, you can see that there is a gorgeous sea of flowers. At a glance, it is dazzling. Before you get close, you can smell the fragrance of flowers. Lu Chuan sat in the carriage and looked out the window. It was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. After entering the flower valley, it would probably be evening before we could find it. Lu Chuan felt that it was highly likely that he would not be able to find the spiritual bamboo directly today. Soon, the carriage stopped at the entrance of the flower valley along the road. There was a post station here. The carriage stopped at the door of the post station, and Lu Chuan and the other four got off the carriage. Huakai and Wu took the lead and walked into the post station, saying, "I'll go in and ask about the situation first." As soon as she walked into the post station, everyone in the post station stopped what they were doing. Some were sitting in the lobby eating and drinking, some were talking to the boss at the counter, and even the waiter who just came out of the kitchen to serve the dishes, all looked over. To these rough guys, Huakai and Wu's appearance was like a fairy from heaven falling into the mortal world. Huakai and Wu walked towards the counter and asked softly, "Boss, I want to ask, has any one of you been into the bamboo forest in Fanhua Valley recently?" The boss was stunned for a moment, and finally came to his senses. He quickly looked at Huakai and Wu, and said with a smile, "Yes, I went into the bamboo forest 2 days ago, and cut some bamboo to make furniture. By the way, I recognize you. You are the daughter of the Hua family, Huakai and Wu, right?" "Yes." "Oh, I've seen your performance before. It's so beautiful and moving, but I was far away and only saw the outline. Miss Hua is here. We are sorry that we couldn't give you a grand welcome." He clasped his fists to Huakai and Wu, and said with an awkward smile. It was enough to be envious of others to be so close to Huakai and Wu, and have a face-to-face conversation with her. "Let's get back to the point. After you entered the bamboo forest, did you encounter any special bamboos?" The boss scratched his head in confusion. "Special bamboo? How special is it?" "It's very different from other bamboos. In short, it's very special." After the boss pondered for a moment, he still shook his head. "Nothing special. By the way, although I didn't see any special bamboos, I encountered a ghost. The bamboo forest is haunted now. If you want to go to the bamboo forest, I advise you to give up." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.